So a few days ago, I put together this chart of all the characters that I relate to in various ways in all the anime that I've watched, sort of as a way of contextualizing myself and the shows that I like, uh, you know, together. And I created all these categories that I grouped all these characters into. It took forever, as you can imagine, given the sheer size of this chart. Um, and I posted this on social media, intending to eventually explain it in detail, which I'm going to do in this video. It's going to take a long time. I also added more characters to the chart from my initial posts. But before I actually talk about any of the ones in this chart, I created a second one that I'm going to use to contextualize the rest of them. These are the characters I never wanted to be like. And these are all characters that I relate to in some way, either in that at some point I felt similarly to them, or that I see them as like negative potential possibilities for someone with my personality or outlook. You know, people who are driven by, you know, negative thoughts that I have had, or who have bad habits that I have had. And you know, and this, so these are not people who I would say I relate to in the sense that I feel like I am them. I am not, and nor do I think that I am at risk of becoming them. But these are like the habits that I've like had to break as a human being. So the number one character that I've always connected with for all of their negative aspects is Izaya from Durarara, who is just purely manipulative. But in order to be effectively manipulative, he also knows everything going on with everybody. He's fully aware of everyone's secrets. He knows about everyone's identity. He's super interested. He's always investigating. He's always trying to collect perspectives. He wants to know everything, but he doesn't want anybody to know him. He doesn't want anybody to know his intentions. And even his intentions are essentially just to create chaos, like to just go through, you know, go to different communities basically and make them fight each other and just like weaken the state of weaken the sanity of society, their ability to, like, you know, contain themselves, and turn the place he lives into a battleground, because he thinks it will allow him to reach Valhalla. He is a troll through and through. That is all he is, all he does. And if he has any true sense of identity, I don't think he can recognize it. So this is the person that, you know, I see as if I, for some reason, like, just outwardly hated everyone around me, or just thought that, you know, their existences only mattered to me insofar as they could further my goal of manipulating them. You know, this is a person with that mindset. And like, when I think about the way that I acted when I was growing up, like without intending to, I, you know, behaved very similarly to Izaya. Like the way that I manipulated my younger brother, Victor in particular, you know, who is more of a Shizuo type, like a super sensitive person who, you know, had to use that, you know, like is also really angry about like just the state of like the fact that people are trying to fuck with you all the time, you know, and protective of an older brother who he sort of looks up to, who probably is, that character might be more similar to what I, you know, am actually like. But Izaya is like representative of all the worst ways that I've been, you know, and the person I try the hardest to not be. And why I'm so fascinated with watching him get punched and like deconstructing all the problems, all the flaws in his character, because I just think he's like the perfect distillation of that, you know, that wrongness. The other character who is a perfect distillation of something I don't want to be is the main character from The Wind Rises. And that's because to me, the message of this movie is that you should not define yourself through your work, because your work is going to be appropriated. It is going to, go beyond you in ways you cannot predict. And, if all you care about is completing your work and like being recognized or whatever, even if just by yourself, for your ability to like realize your visions, then like when you reach the end of the road, the end of the line, and the vision has been realized, and you have to ask yourself like, what was the actual value of your creation in comparison to the things that you ignored in service of that goal. This character, he has a wife who he's completely in love with, who understands him almost implicitly. They have, a level of communication that, that goes beyond words very easily. But at the same time, like, she sort of she appreciates in him that he is so passionate about this work, but like, she's dying, and literally like obfuscates how bad things are so that he can continue to work, because she sees it as like, oh, my place is to like to allow you to do this thing, and then meanwhile he ends up not really getting to spend much time with her or help out as much as he could before she's gone. And in the end, it's like, without her, was any of this really meaningful? Like, if I had recognized that this thing I had was more important to me than the thing that I was, trying to race towards, then, if I had been adaptable, been willing to switch gears, then maybe I would have, had more time with this person that I cared about. And obviously this reflects Miyazaki's feelings about his mother, who, died of tuberculosis, just as the character, the wife in the film does. And he probably didn't get to spend much time with her because he was so busy working his way up through the anime industry and busting his ass for, decades trying to become this famous director. And at the end of the line, his legacy is, it's something that's not even really in his control. So, just a reflection on what was missed out on. So these are like the two biggest things that like I hate about myself: being a workaholic and being a manipulative asshole. But these two characters are like kind of extreme portrayals of those things, and kind of easy to avoid being that way because I know about these characters. And so as we move through, we can see kind of refractions of these things, where like Haruko from Fooly Cooly is also extremely manipulative, using people's emotions to get them to move towards her goals. She's almost just as bad as Izaya, really. She has like a little bit more sincere empathy, and in a way that might be her downfall. That might be why she's not as effective as Izaya. But it also might be why she's, even better at, getting people to go even further for her, probably than Izaya could. But, feminine wiles help a lot with that as well. Gendo Ikari is obviously another, like, manipulative sociopath, who, just hides his feelings so deep that nobody really has a read on him at all. He's a very mysterious type of figure. He's kind of similar to Griffith, who I also have down here as, just this person who like understands people well enough to like work with them very closely and like get their trust and get them to be like a member of his team, and like he kind of has like, this almost motherly, caring atmosphere where like all these people are a family who work with him, but he sacrifices those fucking people, like he sees it as like, you are serving me, you're willing to lay down your life for me, and therefore, what is the difference between me actively killing you and, you sacrificing yourself for me? And like, I think that the fact that he sacrifices them without their understanding, and we can visibly see the way that the fear and the betrayal affects them as they are wiped out by the demons. And it's like, it's just like again, just showing how if somebody's core intentions are evil, then, you know, even if they seem like the nicest person in the world, that is literally that is the setup for the subversion, you know? And like, so that's, I think, something that a lot of people were like afraid of with me, especially like even when I came out. Like a lot of people thought it was a joke. Like people thought I was doing a bit. There's probably a lot of people who still think I'm doing a bit, you know, because of the confusion I had about exactly what I wanted to be. You know, it was hard for me to present like a consistent personality. And like Griffith has a clear idea of what he wants, so he has a fully formed mask. And, you know, the only time that he has to like change anything about his goals is when Guts leaves, because he has to like be confronted with the fact that Guts was not just a pawn, but something that like had some extra meaning to him. And like when he can't, you know, when his like scheme goes awry because somebody actually beat him, which he couldn't see coming, you know, then like his emotions just explode and go out of control, and like he cannot handle like the betrayal of an equal, or actually just being beaten by someone, you know? So like, yeah, I think that like that insecurity at the heart of Griffith is like, I think it confronted him with the fact that he just didn't want Guts to go, you know, like he didn't want it. It didn't matter that there was a logical reason that he had set up the terms for why Guts could leave and then, you know, been beaten. It's like, no, I wanted things to go my way. And like that denial of the emotional reality on the inside is what, you know, cripples this person and leads them to their betrayal in return. So that's kind of what this whiny little bitch from Shiki is like too. He's like a good, like, opposite end of the autism spectrum version of Griffith, where Griffith is like hyper genius. This character is an idiot, but completely wrapped up in their own head, and just constantly having assumptions about everyone's intent around them. It's always like, you know, he's always reading like the worst into what everybody's trying to do, and just gets bitter and bitter about it, you know. And like, this is kind of how I was when I was a teenager, and especially in my like early teens, that feeling like people are going out of their way to slight me, you know. And I was, granted, never nearly as bad as this fucking moron, but this kid's like, you know, this is what becomes a school shooter, is somebody who's just like constantly in a state of thinking that, you know, anybody being kind to them is lying, and anybody who, you know, is mean to, or anybody who says anything that hurts their feelings was definitely doing it on purpose, you know. I think that, you know, this is the type of person that like is the most intolerable to me, because it's like something that I think I had to get past when I was young. And, you know, it's kind of like, if I see it in other people, then I'm like, how can you still be this way? You know? Then we have Togame here from Katanagatari, who is another manipulator. And this one's particularly frustrating because her thing is that she manipulates herself. And she has this big speech at the end of the show, how her whole personality had been fake, that she like brainwashed herself to think that she was this person, but she's actually not. And it was very frustrating for me, because obviously I can relate to this in a sense that like I sort of, you know, have my own like identity that I've been projecting for a long time that is not necessarily the same as like how I felt inside. But like the problem with it is that she is insincere about this, that like she convinces herself that she's manipulating herself when she's actually just being sincere. Like the concept that it is a self-manipulation only exists for the purpose of justifying the, you know, the idea of the action ultimately being not a result of her intent, you know? And this is not like criticized by the show, which frustrated me. I don't know if it was intention, like I'd have to rewatch it to really like fucking speak on it. But yeah, I just her talking about how she had manipulated herself just fucking pissed me off, because it's the kind of shit that I would say to, like, justify something that ultimately I don't think is fair to consider, alien to my intent. I don't think you really can be alien to your intent. I think you can just obfuscate it in one or two small ways that allow you to, like, lexically justify your actions to yourself, or lexically define a line that you've decided to live above, because you cannot find a healthy way to externalize what lies beneath, if that makes sense. So, all right. We've got Char as another just, like, manipulative fucking sociopath. Nothing much to see there. Kaiba's kind of the same, but Kaiba has a lot of empathy because of the fact that he has it for his little brother. And I always related to Kaiba when I was a kid, but I think I saw Kaiba more as a hero than as, like, I was always, like, I thought Kaiba was my favorite character in Yu-Gi-Oh! I was never not on Kaiba's side. And it's because of the fact, not that Kaiba is, like, a villain or an asshole, but because of the fact that he tries to take care of Mokuba. And Mokuba is this cute little effeminate little brother who, like, just loves Kaiba with all his heart, and all he wants to do is try to help Kaiba, So, like, on some level, I related to Kaiba as a big brother, but also, like, just the idea that he's somebody who's, like, literally fuck everyone except for, this person who cares about me, is, like, both a way that I want, like, both the mentality I had towards, like, the people I cared about, but also the mentality that I wanted people to have towards me. It's like, I want there to be somebody who's like, yeah, I fucking will literally, like, I will literally murder whoever I have to if it means that I, protect you. And, like, so Kaiba's, all of his evil shit he did throughout the series, on some level, there was a justification, but ultimately the arc is about realizing, there's a better way, and, like, coming out from the fucking, like, madness and sociopathy to, like, embrace friendship as a way forward instead. Which, obviously Mokuba comes to understand before Kaiba. And therefore help to bring it out of him. So, yeah, what a sweet story. Stalking, from Panty and Stalking, loves to be abused and also just is a glutton. And these are both, I've never been in enough relationships to have had abusive ones the way that Stalking loves. Like, I think that I was just so, like, afraid and wary of, like, of those kinds of, like, deeply emotional connections, and also just not really, understanding what role I was supposed to fill in a relationship until I was much older. But, like, I understand why Stalking gets off on just, like, being fucking, like, shit on and abused, and, also why she just, like, cannot stop eating. Like, it's like because I have a very addictive personality myself, and, like, I guess I connect to both, like, Panty sex addiction and Stalking sweets addiction, but I feel like I'm more of a sweets consumer because it's more of a standoffish. It's like, it's more like she wants to be repelled than to be accepted, I guess. And that's why I see her as, like, a villainous part of my person. I guess, like, Panty is more of, like, a person I actually want to be like, and Stalking is more like a person that I don't want to be like. But, I mean, I think Stalking, represents, obviously, another extreme, not necessarily something you want to be. I don't want to be a fucking a slut myself, necessarily. But, I also don't want to be a snack fiend. Anyway, the girl from Paranoia Agent, I mean, she basically makes up a character in order to defend herself that ends up complicating this lie that spreads through society and has this rippling negative effect, And, like, I don't think the existence of Digibro has ever had a rippling negative effect because it's not a negative character, even if it is a false one. But it does create the increasing complication of the difficulty of actually reversing it and like admitting, where the character begins and ends and where reality, begins and ends. And the fact that she basically externalizes her paranoia into a fictional character who becomes real through the abstraction of society. Yeah, I connect with that pretty easily, but it's something you got to be careful with. And this character, she is not careful. Also, we have the big brother from fucking Grave of the Fireflies, who basically his pride destroys his and his little sister's life. This is like, I don't blame this kid for anything that happens in this movie because he's obviously a victim and a fucking teenager. But like ultimately, there are decisions throughout the movie that he could have made that would have potentially saved him and his sister's life that he does not make because of his pride and identity. And I know what that be like, and this is like a worst case scenario of that. So it's like, put those feelings away, which also is of course a metaphor for what actually happened to Japan. He is meant to represent essentially why Japan ended up in the state that they were. So, moving our way down, Akio from Utena, another manipulative person. The guy from 5 centimeters per second, I put him on here just because it's, I don't ever want to feel that feel I felt that day. Onso Kamaru here from 2x2 Shinobuden is just like basically the most new type character that's ever existed. Like, if you think of all the like wacky, obnoxious characters like XL from XL Saga and all that, Onso Kamaru is just the most of that it could be, because he's just a white ball that can transform into anything. And voiced by Norio Wakamoto, and just spastic and perverse and all over the place, and just like, and like has like the brain of a child literally. And so like they're just crass and awful and a pain to be around, and all of it's funny to watch in a show, but like this is like, it's like if my like autism was just unchained and I didn't know any social cues, this is what it would be like, and maybe what it was like when I was at the lunch table as a kid, Krauser the second here also kind of takes me back because of the fact that I really connect to the idea of this character who literally just wants to be like, all he wants is to be a Swedish pop musician and play like, and the fact that it's specifically Swedish pop, like Sweden has this aesthetic style called Hygge that's like this warm, comfy, yarn based, like think like Yoshi's fucking yarn game, or Kirby's yarn game even, like those are very Hygge aesthetic games. And like the like style of music that corresponds with that is essentially what the main character in this show wants to play, and he wants to date this like trendy cute girl and listen to this type of music with her. But like inside of him is just the metal devil, and it's because of the frustration he has at being socially awkward, at like not being able to accomplish his his goal of being this Swedish pop musician, because he doesn't understand what he needs to do, and like his inner feelings better externalize themselves as just pure hate and fucking terrorism. And so he's worshipped as this god in the metal world, but he completely has no connection to that identity and does not want to be the metal god, So like essentially Krauser is in a way how I feel about Digibro, except that I actually appreciate, because of the fan outreach, that I am like that is a cool character that does reach people. So I'm not as closeted and ashamed of myself as the main character in this show is, because I feel more connection to the character I'm putting on. But and also I love metal music, so. But I do like, even as, it's funny, I did this collab album with Zen Huxtable, and he sent me like like I had basically sent him concepts for songs and then told him to like interpret that and I would sing over it. And he sent me mostly like kind of beats or like rap beat oriented type music because I understand like the thinking is I'm a rapper because I've done lots of raps. But like the reality is that I rap kind of because it's a style that like I can do easily because it's easy for me to like understand how to fabricate the persona of the rapper. Like I get how to like, just in the same way that Krauser is a completely inauthentic, you know, caricature of a like insane death metal god. You know, I know how to be a caricature of a rapper to some extent, but like I'm also like a meta aware version of it because like it's obvious that I'm not really that. So the fact that I'm like simultaneously playing into the stereotypes of it, but also addressing the distance that I really am from it, you know, but like all of this is essentially a replacement for if I was just singing emotionally, which would not come off this way. It would come off as like emotional, you know, like singing music. Like it would not be this like intense, abrasive alter persona that I have to dive into. But like that's because I have a greater emotional range than the main character of Detroit Metal City, who really hasn't opened his mind very far to the possibilities in his life. A lot of these characters really are just kind of fall somewhere into the spectrum of being like socially manipulative assholes, or people who let themselves get manipulated easily, which is also something like, you know, I was an extremely naive kid. I would even say like Misaki from Welcome to the NHK kind of like reminds me of the kind of person that I felt like on the inside by my teen years. And like, I think if I had actually looked like her, I would have ended up like her, you know, like somebody who thinks in a very like new typey kind of way, but has just kind of followed along with like whatever application for that has been given down by her parents. In her case, you know, being this like religious missionary, but like her real interest is just like helping people who kind of seem like her. And I guess she connects to Sato as like, you know, oh, this is like a guy version of me, you know, in a way. And like, so yeah, I guess I connect to her in that sense that like Sato here is what I actually was like in my teens. And I connected with this show extremely hard. But like, I don't even think I really at the time, like, because of the fact that I saw myself as a man, I like, even when I related to female characters, I kind of put it out of mind because it's like, oh, well, I can't, like, I'm not a woman, so like, I can't be the girl character. Like, I'm the guy character, you know, but like these two characters are like kind of two eventualities of having the same mindset towards the world, you know? And both of them, it's their like their, you know, their anxiety and their having been so closed off and having so few human connections is what causes their problems. Shiki is similar. Doesn't really know how to interact because she's like so busy just trying to like understand and like come to terms with her own mind, which is like so fucking fractured from the like dissociative identities that she doesn't know how to like, you know, pay attention to what's going on with the people around her. Like, there's too much other shit going on inside of her mind because she can, like, see death lines and has a constant urge to kill that must be suppressed. Obviously, I'm not that edgy. You could tell I kind of made the characters, like, the size of how much I relate to them or how afraid I am of being them. Here we've got, you know, Tomoko from Watamote. I feel like I would have connected with Tomoko more if I had been born a girl because of the fact that like, or maybe I wouldn't because maybe I wouldn't have had the struggles that she has, because like in Tomoko's case, it's like she sees things that are cute, understands that they are cute, and then is like, I don't understand how to replicate this even when I try, and I don't know how to ask somebody for help. And like that's the part that I connect with her on. But, like, because she's a girl, she actually, like, makes attempts. Whereas for me, it's just like, well, I can't even attempt. Like, there is no possible way I can look the cute thing I want to look like. You know, and that's kind of like the denial that I had set into my brain for a long time. So, like, and as a result, I didn't put myself in as many like insanely awkward situations as Tomoko did. Whereas I think she relates better to May, as somebody who is confused, I think, because she doesn't, I think that Tomoko is confused because like she's seeking things that are like cute, but like also trying to like reflect that in herself. But realistically, she should just be herself and like attract the cute things, like her cute friend at school. She should just be lesbians with her. I don't know where the manga goes. I haven't read past the first volume, but yeah, some of these characters are like people who like try to be caretakers but fail in some way, or who, through their like lonerism or like decision to like, making all the decisions themselves, end up having like wrong tendencies. Somebody like Saber, for instance, who I talked about in the Magical Girl video, how like her whole problem is that she tries to do everything herself and doesn't like try to task the people who believe in her with anything, and so they come to resent her. And this is how I kind of feel about a lot of my like longtime fans or older patrons who like were there for me and like, always like at the ready to help me out if I needed anything. But like, I always had this mentality of like, oh, well, if I can't pay somebody, then like I don't feel right, incorporating their content into like something that I'm making money off of. And like, I don't know, I just didn't think about like trying to be creative about how to approach that or like really communicate with those people. Like, I'm so afraid of like using an artist, that I don't even attempt to work with an artist, and like, so, thinking about that and recognizing those flaws in that character. I also have like every character from Fate Zero on here because they're all just like negative potential consequences of being, of just trying to achieve something, like all the bad sides of trying to achieve something are represented in these characters, I guess. We've got, Nureha from Log Horizon, and this is a character, because when we get into the characters that I want to be like, we're going to talk about a lot of, like, matriarchal figures, and Nureha is, like, the worst case scenario of, like, an e-girl leech who, like, builds this entire empire on the basis of, like, simps who, will just, like, follow her orders, and she kind of is, like, I consider her to be a metaphor, like the way that she's staged in the show. She is a metaphor for a communist nanny state. Like, what she runs is like essentially a hive colony, a place where everybody just follows the commands of the queen, and life is good there. But you have to follow the commands of the queen. You have to do things the way she wants them done. And she is a genius, and she does run things well if you like living there. But she also wants to take over. She wants everybody to be under her umbrella, And ultimately, I think that you should, as a figure, as a leader figure, you should only attempt to, engage as many people as like you can effectively. The bigger your society grows, I mean, every empire falls, let's put it that way. Like, as soon as an empire gets to a point where it no longer can address the needs of the people, to a point where they feel like they're better off being there, they will leave. And like, they won't be better off being there, they will be better off self-managed. And it might not seem that way in the short term when there are benefits that could save lives of, joining an empire, especially if the benefits are you won't be killed by that empire. But like, long term, it will never benefit people to, give up their sovereignty, and to not, manage things on a local level first and foremost, where the needs of people are addressed most specifically. So like, Nureha trying to expand her blanket and be queen of the world and have everybody be under her control is, in my opinion, a wrong-headed view of matriarchy. So, here we have Cosette, who is just a beautiful doll, and I think that Cosette is like, I think Petite Cosette is about being trapped in the obsession of being perfect, of like, of needing to reflect the most like beautiful inner version of yourself. Because like, obviously I project onto blonde lollies hardcore. Like, it's odd because I was not blonde as a kid, but like I did have bleached hair when I was like 10 because of the fact that I had like blue spiky hair. And I don't know, maybe I just liked the way I looked when I was blonde. Or maybe I just think that I wish I was blonde. I have no idea. But when I look at like blonde haired, blue eyed lollies, because I do have big sparkly blue eyes, I always think of like, oh, that's what I look like in my own mind. Also with white hair, like blonde, white hair, any kind of just like bright, poppy hair. You know, not to say that I don't connect with lots of dark haired lollies as well, but you know, like Shinobu from Monogatari, or like, you know, characters like that are the ones that I always like look at as like, oh, I wish I was that, you know? And Cosette is obviously a like perfect example of that. But the thing is that Cosette was murdered. And the painting is an immortalized version of what she was at that time. And she had to be murdered to be preserved, you know, in the psychotic mind of the painter. So, like, you know, the real one was eventually going to become imperfect. So the fake one had to be preserved in this painting. And, you know, the main character of the show becomes obsessed with the painting in a similar way, but ultimately has to destroy it in order to move on. And this is an interesting metaphor for me because on the one hand, you could look at it as like an endorsement of repression in the sense that it's telling you like, you know, don't be obsessed with this thing you think you have to be. Just be, you know, be who you need to be, you know, or who you are. But like, for me, it was more like I realized that the only reason that I had been holding myself back from embracing my identity as a woman was that I wanted to be a beautiful woman. That like I didn't feel like I could ever start dressing like a woman unless I lost weight and like, you know, I don't know, learned how to wear makeup or, you know, just change things about myself. You know, mostly it was just a weight thing, but like, because I already look very effeminate, but like you know, and also I was really insecure about getting tall because like growing up I was super short. And so like I think that might have been, whereas the weight thing is like I could change that. I could not change the fact that I couldn't be small anymore, you know? So like that's why I project onto lolly characters because like, oh, I wish I could be small again like that. But like, you know, I was able to move. It's like I cannot be small. I cannot be you know, a blonde lolly, and I cannot be immortal. You know, like a lot of the blonde lollies that I love are also like, it's funny because in the case of, you know, Shinobu, she is immortal. Mina Tepe's vampire immortal. You know, like I like these immortal vampire lollies because of the fact that like, you know, I also don't want to die. I have a complex about that. So it's like a great multi-layered projection, you know, of something, of wish fulfillment. But like, that's what Petite Cosette is criticizing. It's like you have to move on because you cannot keep projecting your own inner desires onto this image, you know, this image that is not you, and is, in the case of Petite Cosette, like in the plot of the show, it is an image of a real person. And essentially her soul has not been able to move on because of the fact that she was murdered, you know, so aggressively in the service of the creation of this version of Cosette. So like, you know, the false Cosette that has been preserved in the image has to burn in order for the real Cosette's soul to be let free. And that's why Petite Cosette is dope as fuck. That's probably the deepest analysis I've done or seen of that show, and it all just came to me. Here we've got Seita Sojiro from Rurouni Kenshin. This kid was my favorite character in Kenshin, even though I never saw like any of the episodes he was in, except for the actual one where he fights Kenshin. But I had read about him online. And the idea of his character is that he's like a 13-year-old or so, like genius prodigy swordsmith who like the pressure from having to like, do that, I guess, and like I don't know, his family was abusing him or something, so he murdered them all. Again, I never saw the episodes. I just was fascinated with the character because of the fact that he had been, considered a genius as a child and became a a rogue asshole, I guess. And I was like, yeah, that's just like me. Because at the time, that level of anger was something that I almost wished I had within myself to express, to express my feelings of reciprocation towards what the world was doing to me. But I never was sincerely angry the way that this kid was, so I see the fact that I ever connected with him as problematic. So that's why he's on the list. We've also got a bunch of characters who are just lazy. Chitose from Girlish Number is the worst case scenario of total Dunning-Kruger, believes she's amazing for literally no reason, has no concept of how hard other people are working, thinks that she's giving it her best when she's really giving it her worst, and that really is something that has to be beaten into her and she has to learn, and I've been there. And the director from Shirobako, where even though he has made successful projects, he has been disciplined before, he is such an emotional guy that even in his position, even being a decently good director, he still has to be strong-armed and fucking forced to finish things and to actually do work. And I'm probably more like him than people even realize. I don't think people understand just how badly I need to be forced to get in the fucking robot, if you will. Shinji's not on here. I guess I don't regret being Shinji, because he's a good boy by the end, Yeah, I guess we have a few more failed caretaker figures to some degree. I mean, in the Skycrawlers, I think that there's sort of a hopeful resolution to the idea that, I have to rewatch this movie because I haven't seen it in 10 years, but it's one of my favorites. And Chibasari here from Horo Musuko, who I connect to in the sense that a less extreme version of this guy from Shiki. She kind of blames her friends for her own anger, and she also hates herself for the fact that she does that, which I connect to as well. And it's she just gets locked in this loop of emotions and guilt over those emotions and inability to be authentic towards the fact that she wants somebody to comfort her, because ultimately she doesn't know if she deserves that when she can't open up, and comfort other people herself, or is failing to do so. Yeah. And this bitch is just crazy and fucking uses the fact that she knows how to be comforting to entrap people and do sadistic shit to them. So yeah, she's pretty fucked up. She's definitely another worst case scenario of a person with my mind type, I guess. Makishima, he's kind of similar to Izaya. I think he has more moral fiber in that he's less wrong given the context of the scenario that he's in. I almost would say that I would be on Makishima's side, but I am nonviolent. Ultimately, I would not be willing to just murder innocent people for the sake of subverting the system. Maybe if I lived in the world of psychopaths, where I would almost certainly be deemed as a person who had to be in the facilities, or I probably would be conscripted as a what are they called? Not the enforcers, but the ones who work on enforcers. I'd probably be conscripted as an enforcer in that world, but maybe I would be more on Makishima's side. It's hard to say. All right. Is there anybody else I feel the need to really specify why they're here? Revi from Black Lagoon is another one who's just extremely abrasive and basically just has buried her feelings so far deep that she does not want to believe they exist at all, and kind of tasks everyone around her to be as much of a hard ass as she is, which I think is an unfair way to look at the people around you. It's just because you're insecure doesn't mean that I have to act like a hard ass all the time, just like you, just because you think the world functions that way. You know, you got to be at peace some of the time. So yeah. So that essentially, I guess I could also talk about like Kaiki. He's similarly just like, you know, emotions aren't real. Everything about me is fake, and I am just going to live with that. That's the state of the world, and like everything is about power, money, and intelligence. You know, Jibril here is just kind of a fucking elitist cunt. She is like privileged and not understanding, and like holds people to task for their intelligence, which I think is just, you know, a cunt move. And we also have some like light novel guys down here who just like, I mean, in the case of these two, they just have like bad attitudes towards society. Obviously the whole point of the story is for them to like heal socially, but like, you know, I've never made it far enough into either of these stories to see that actually happen. And Ayato from Asterisk War, I mostly put on here for his like weird sexual repression. And you know, as somebody who grew up with that myself, where like I was like so afraid of like exploring sexuality for such a long time, and I still feel like I'm like, in spite of the fact that I will talk about the fact that I have sex publicly, I will not go into details. I'm comparably chaste, unless I'm drunk, I guess. But you know, I don't know if I necessarily look down on myself for being chaste, but like, you know, maybe to an extent that is like, you know, overkill, and he is definitely like that as well. So that's all the characters that I never wanted to be like. Now let's talk about the characters that I do want to be like. So now we're going to have a look at characters that are the opposite of characters I don't want to be like. They're characters that are personal role models, characters that I want to be as much like as possible. I could never hope to be as based as most of these characters, as they are written to be as based as possible. There are some exceptions here. You know, Misato might be like even more flawed than I am as a human being by the end of Eva. Less over her personal hang-ups, I guess. But, you know, most of these characters are fairly aspirational. So there is a common thread here, and again, it is that they are caretakers by and large. And it's something that I really couldn't have understood until I put them all next to each other. Like, until I literally looked at all these people's faces next to each other, especially the ones that, like, I feel the strongest connection to, which oddly are old ladies with gray hair. But, yeah, like, you know, the elements about these characters that I like about them is their ability to understand the world around them, adapt accordingly, and help other people to do the same. So my very first choice on here, because I think this is probably the character that is like the closest approximation of my reality, is Irabu from Kuchu Buranko, or Trapeze, as it's known in English. If you haven't seen the show, I highly recommend it. It's only like 11 or 12 episodes. And it's fucking super uplifting. It is probably for me at least, for somebody who thinks like me, it is the most uplifting show imaginable, because each episode is basically about somebody who has a different personality disorder. You know, basically like the ones that are typically classified in the DSM, you know, was obsessive compulsive anxiety disorder. You know, just each episode is a different person's strange, you know, hang-ups, and they find themselves coming to this clinic where this doctor just basically, I don't know what Irabu really does for the patients, but he, you know, causes them to think differently and start to head on the road to recovery by the end of the episode. So, you know, it's a very trippy and weird and adult, but very heartwarming show. And Irabu has 3 forms that they sort of just shift between, like, in physical reality in the show, because the show has like a mixed media art style, so everything kind of is shifting all the time anyways. But Irabu will sometimes appear as a, like, a young doctor who is like, I don't know, maybe in their 20s, who's like kind of a pretty boy, seems kind of like image obsessed and kind of like dramatic. And that's like the one that will mainly interact with people in the office. But then there's one form that's just like this fucking weird, ugly green bear, like just big green bear suit, with like wacky patches on it, you know, that communicates in a weirder way. But then there's also this like deadpan, lolly shota, like androgynous blonde, like, you know, flowery pink thing that we have on screen here. So, and this one is like the hyper-lexical direct communicator, you know, bored unemotional one. So like, this is, you know, I mean, like, obviously there's a id, ego, super ego metaphor we can make here. You know, I don't tend to think of myself in terms of threes as much as just two. You know, in my mind, I don't feel like as much separation in my life, I guess, because I kind of try to be the same person in all different scenarios, which limits the, you know, it limits the scope of, and ordinarily it would limit the scope of your social interaction. But if you're somebody who puts yourself out there to such an absurd degree that you find people who actually will accept you holistically, and you only like try to communicate with those people, you know, or at least close enough that the blanks between it is not like upsetting to you, you know. I think that's difficult for a lot of people, but that's the kind of person that I want to be, you know. And for Irabu here, their efforts are dedicated to helping other people get through their hang-ups. And similarly, the main character from Mononoke I also put in here as somebody who I would consider an aesthetician of like fucking problem solving of weird fucking spirit energies, basically. Similar to Ginkgo from Mushishi, who I did not put in personal role models, but I did put in, like, I think people I want to be friends with. But, like, because of the fact that I'm going to have to talk a little bit about a reworking I've been thinking of the neurotyping chart. That, you know, essentially your ability to have, like, a role in society has to do with, like, whether you can, like, what understandings you can develop that are useful to society. And if those understandings are things that have, like, clear lexical, like descriptions that you understand, then that's like a technician. And if it's something that is only understood by people who have a, like, more, you know, what we might call spiritual or just impressionistic or, you know, emotional understanding of these, you know, I use these terms interchangeably because they're all kind of metaphors for each other in a sense, you know, like somewhere at the intersection of that is a character like the medicine seller here, who, like, understands situations in a way that cannot be explained to people without causing them to have an experience which will strip away their insecurity and force them to face the reality of their past, you know? And so he's, like, honest to a point that it is extremely terrifying and fearsome to the people he has to deal with, because, like, in order for him to help them, they have to be honest with themselves. And that is impossible for a lot of people, and it will tear them apart trying to do it, you know? So it's, in a sense, having someone break through all your barriers in a way that you actually feel is like a Cthulian experience, you know? And for me, I kind of mentioned this in the latest Befriending the Internet, that, like, I think part of the reason I gravitated towards anime is that films are, like, overwhelming emotional experiences for me. Like, there's too much to take in. And so, like, the amount of time I would spend decompressing that afterwards emotionally will, like, make it difficult to move on, you know? Whereas with anime, I'm more interested in it in a metatextual sense, where, like, a lot of the emotions I feel towards the show are about things I think about, as opposed to things that are, like, like, you know, a part of the experience, like bringing emotions directly out of me, but like emotions I'm sort of choosing to have in a way, you know. So yeah, that's like, I don't know why the fuck I'm explaining that, but yeah, the medicine seller I consider an aesthetician, somebody who, you know, who is a counselor, not unlike Irabu, but whereas Irabu takes a more standoffish approach and is kind of like, here, just like, you know, do this and I bet it'll fix you, you know, whatever. Medicine seller is like, I'm going to literally like peer into your soul and you're not going to like it. And like, you're going to probably hate me because like I cannot help you in a way that you're going to like, you know? So yeah, that's also cool as shit. Motoko Kusanagi here. I mean, Motoko, if you, I feel like it would be impossible not to connect with Motoko if you've had any kind of like experience of like just questioning your identity in any way, like having to deal with the thought of like recognizing yourself, like your original sense of self, and like wondering if it is, you know, wondering if it has transformed in the process of your body changing. And like in Motoko's case, it's very literalized because she like is pretty much a full cyborg. Like there's nothing, no part of her human body remains except for the abstract sense of self that was constructed when the memory, the things that the shape of her brain was transplanted, you know, into information in a cyber brain, and has continued to have information be built on top of that. But like, you know, like, is that enough of your original self to like conclusively consider yourself to be the same person, you know, when your entire body factors into who you are? And like her being so cyborgized is what has allowed her to have like, you know, better understanding of the internet and what it means to be a cyborg than anybody else. And like she has, throughout the manga, she's like continually at the forefront of not just like participation in, but development of like the technologies that are pushing the internet into like abstract levels that are fucking difficult to even like parse when you read about them in Ghost of the Shell 2.0. So like, you know, she's kind of the ultimate new type. And if you watch like Standalone Complex all the way through to the movie Solid State Society, she literally like becomes able to host multiple bodies at the same time, and like has this, you know, like it takes on different identities with the different bodies, because like, you know, her insecurity throughout the show had been like, you know, oh, I always choose the exact same body because like I want to continue to preserve as much of like the original person that I was as possible. But like now that she feels, I think, more comfortable in the like idea of her sense of self, she's like, okay, well now I'm willing to like expand myself out to like encompass more, you know? And so, you know, and it's all in service of being able to protect humanity through solving deeper and deeper, you know, problems with direct action. So yeah, she's kind of got like a lot of both like positive feminine and masculine traits, and she's presented as like bisexual, she's presented as kind of non-binary, and also just like, you know, I mean, at the end of the movie she becomes a lolly. At the end of Solid State Society, she has male bodies, female bodies, just all kinds of them. So, like, yeah, you know, I really admire her ability to, like, have such a strong sense of self that she can project herself beyond even one physical body, even at a point where, like, so little of her original self remains, but, like, she's so confident in, like, the core ideal that was guiding her, you know, childhood self, that, like, she has preserved that at least, and that is, like, enough, you know, to feel a confident sense of self in the wake of, you know, the deconstruction that she faced at the hands of the puppet master, or whatever the fuck happened in the show that I don't remember. So Sana Karada here from Kodocha is like 10, but she is the most compassionate, badass, hardworking, like overachieving person that there is. Because she's famous. She has like, she's a character on a show about like being in school, and she also like, the show like bounces between, her life as a star and her life as just like an ordinary school student who is also an overachiever at school, and whose mom is like a fucking BPD new type writer who is just like completely unfit to give her any kind of normal advice. And so like she's basically taken everything onto herself to just like live up to everything she could possibly be, and also help other people at the same time, and also like involve herself in like things, and try to navigate what she feels more responsible towards, like doing her job, and like her sort of the projection of her mom's vanity on like what she what her power is best used for, I guess. Whereas maybe she wants to, foster closer connections with specific people, especially when she meets this kid who's like this boy who has like an abusive personality that she at first is really upset by. But like when she sees, like why he's behaving that way, then it's like, oh, now I especially like want to help this person, because like I understand that like he at the core wants to be good, but like cannot move past these whatever troubled emotions. So which is like the sort of stereotype of like what every girl fantasizes about, right? It's like, I can fix him, but I think that you can fix someone to an extent, in that you can placate them to the extent that you are capable of doing so for the duration of time you were able to do so. It's not a permanent solid state of fixing somebody, but I do think that you can achieve symbiosis with people, and that's what Sana attempts to achieve with all these people in her life, all these things that she's tasking herself to do. But like it's the reason it's so difficult is that like the rules are more complicated than they might seem, and you have to really spend a lot of time putting a lot of effort into navigating that at the expense of yourself, in service of people who don't appreciate it, but her willingness to do that is something that I find admirable, even if maybe she should scale it back and think about herself more. So Misato, she's just like, she struggles to be a caretaker because of the fact that she hasn't fully taken care of herself. And it's been thrust on her that like she suddenly has to, in order to, help this whole operation work, she suddenly has to learn how to discipline children. And like she tries to do to them like what would work for her, like based on what compels her, which is a more like competitive tendency, as she's someone who like admires her dad and wants to be like, wants to be more of a like, like a person who's known for their ability. And Shinji is not like that. Shinji wants to be known for being a good person. Like Shinji is motivated by the fact that people appreciate the fact that he's fighting, that he feels seen, that he's getting the attention that he doesn't get from from his dad, because his dad can't communicate with him, So like she figures out what Shinji needs and tries her best to like provide that to him. And really her inability to do so is mostly as a result of the fact that she has to continue to do this job because she's the only one who can. She really cannot fill a caretaker role because she has to fucking work for Nerve, because it's the end of the world scenario, and like her, desperation to try and help Shinji however she can, you really see it in the end, where I think, when she kisses him, you could read it a lot of different ways, but I kind of look at it as like a desperation to encourage him to keep going in spite of the fact that he's about to watch her die. Like, even though like there's nothing left I can do for you, I am going to die. Just know that like I believe in you whatever way you need me to, to an extent that like, if you needed me to look at you as a man, like I'll look at you that way, but it's just out of this like desperation to encourage him to go on with whatever is at her disposal in that moment. Tsunemori Akane, is the most lexical, the most middle manager, the most opposite of my personality that a person could possibly be. But she works the goddamn hardest to understand the shit that she doesn't get. If there's a concept presented to her and she doesn't get it, she's going to sit there and patiently ask questions and try to get to the heart of it, because she sincerely wants to know what's going on, because she has a very powerful sense of justice, and she, wants to know that the justice that she is implementing is correct. And in the very first episode, that is immediately challenged. She has spent her whole life firmly believing in the justice of the system, and the second she sees it in action, she immediately realizes that the justice is wrong. And this was how I felt stepping into the world. Like, for me as a kid, I firmly believed in what I perceived to be the rules as established by, like, my understanding of the world from my parents and from what I learned on TV and stuff, and like, so for me, like, the challenge of fitting into society was realizing that other people were playing with different rules from me and not understanding those rules and not understanding how to ask about them, And so in a way, it's like I wanted to be like Tsunemori Akane. Like, at the deepest core, and this is why, like, I relate to, the deadpan lolly characters, because, like, deep down, I feel that just, like, level of, I just want to follow the rules. I just want to do what's appropriate. I just want to make the best decision. That's all I want to do. What do I have to do to figure out what that's going to be? I will go to any fucking lengths to figure out, like, what's the best decision, but I have to actually believe that it's the right decision. And Akane has that thrown into doubt the second she sees how the system really operates. And that's, basically getting black-pilled. And that's what happened to me over and over again until the point where I became the black pill. But that's kind of Tsunemori Akane, where at the end, and this is the only thing that I appreciate about season 2, is the presentation of how she continues her job from that point forward, which is that the Sybil system gives people a reading of how psychotic they are at a given moment, and if it exceeds 300, then it becomes okay to kill them. But Akane observes in episode 1 that a person can be talked down from that state. So it's clearly true that these people do not have to die just because they have they have enough, like, potential to be dangerous that they, have been judged as executionable. So, like, she becomes sort of a frontier psychiatrist, if you will. Frontier psychiatrist as a, and she, like, goes out and, like, tries to basically talk people down to below the number 300 so that she could shoot them with the paralyzing gun, essentially subverting the system from within by, proving it wrong in doing her job in service of it. And even though that could get her in trouble because she would be reprimanded for not following the system exactly, ultimately there is no law within the system besides the fact that you should, listen to it, that, like, demands that she cannot talk people down from the ledge, So yeah, it's subverting the system through the, like, extremely pedantic particulars of how it works. And, just saving one life at a time in the process. And that's how I see my life. I mean, I spend a lot of time talking to schizos on Twitter and just being like, wish you would step back from that ledge, my friend. I would understand. Toko here is kind of similar to Irabu and Medicine Seller. She's, like, somewhere between the two of them, a little bit of a psychiatrist, a little bit of a spiritual helper, and 100% a fucking badass. And yeah, she's both waifu tier and ambitions tier. I probably am closer to her aesthetic than I am to a lot of the characters that I project onto. Like, it would be a more reasonable, like, thing to attempt. But anyway, Maytel here, She's, you know, pretty much just like a motherly character. Like, that is like the conceit of her, is to be this like extremely pleasant, emotionally protective person, who is like refracted through every different Leiji Matsumoto work. You know, this is just Leiji Matsumoto's inner feminine instinct. This is that dude from 5-Star Stories. I don't even remember much about his character, having only seen the OVA, but I just remember him being like a dope, cool guy. We've got here the main character from Shaman King, who's just like chill as fuck and always just like, you know, nothing phases him at all. Nothing like gets him riled up. He flows like water. You know, like he's kind of like Spike Spiegel, but even more of like a hippie. I mean, Spike is kind of a fucking hippie, but like Yo takes it to another level. And I think when I read Shaman King when I was like 12. That was like the first shonen manga I read, because the first volume of Shonen Jump, like American Shonen Jump that I got, volume 3, was the introductory chapter. So I just immediately was like, you know, I saw myself as being too much like the character Manta, the sort of like, you know, the audience stand-in who is supposed to look up to Yo. And like I saw myself as somewhere in between them on the spectrum, but ultimately closer to actually being this character and wanting to be even more like this character, you know? So yeah, I think my aesthetic certainly borrows from him a little bit, as well as Stoner here. This character is literally named Stoner. He runs the magazine, the countercultural magazine Ray Out, which is the like basically lifeblood of the culture of the Gecko State. The ship that the ship and crew that are like basically the main characters in Eureka 7. They are like a subversive, like basically like a terrorist group, I guess, who is like trying to subvert the evil government that is you know, has this crazy plan to fucking harvest humanity or whatever. And so they're all like into spiritual hippie shit and surfing, and like most of them are just like kind of, you know, bros who just like want to surf and be cool and down and like steal shit from the government and fuck the system. But Stoner's the one who's like, you know, really knows like what the final goals here are, you know, like he's got his eyes on the big picture, and he's also the photographer. He's the one who, you know, organizes the magazine, gets the messages out to the people, writes the articles. You know, he is the voice of the spiritual voice of the Gecko State, and I hope to be so based as a magazine kind of person myself who wants to make my own zines. So here we've got Kaname from Log Horizon, who is also Shirue, the main character's sort of role model, in that she is like, she just follows her instinct purely, and you know, is very able to rely on the strength of others, or even just her impression of others, in order to give her ideas. She's just like super open to experiences, and you know, that's like the opposite of me, and the way that I most, you know, like the like, again, extreme version of something that I would like to incorporate better into myself. I guess I could say something similar about Belladonna of Sadness here. She ultimately becomes like the Great Grey Witch, and I definitely resonate with a lot of like witch kind of, you know, imagery. Having grown up a goth or goth adjacent, I relate to all the fucking weird pagan shit that was going on in this movie, and also the sick 70s music. Here we've got Hibari-kun, or Hibari-chan, if you will. The show is Hibari-kun, but Hibari-chan is a assigned male at birth trans girl who falls in love with a guy who comes to live at her house after his mom dies. And he does not want to be in love with her because he knows that she's assigned male at birth. And she does not care because she knows that he likes her, and she is going to, you know, she's going to make him admit it. And it's fucking great. It's a super adorable show. But, like, the author has straight up said that, like, all of his art is born out of his desire to have been born a woman. And Hibari is an escapist fantasy about basically, like, what if I had been able to pass as a kid and, like, went all in on it? Like, what if I had just been, like, you know, such a beautiful, effeminate boy that I could get away with just saying I was a girl and living my life as a girl and, like, living up to my own, like, idea of, like, what are the strengths of femininity. And, like, Hibari is presented in such a way where, like, obviously the author is thinking very hard about, like, specifically feminine traits for Hibari to have, but it is not strictly, like, just that she's perfect in every way. Like, she also has, you know, she has certain weaknesses that also play into, like, her approach to life, which is, again, hyper emotional, hyper, like, attentive and aware and manipulative, but in a way where she's, like, trying to work towards the intentions that she knows you have that you won't admit, you know? Like, she understands people in a way where she gets what they're thinking and not say, or not what they're thinking, rather, but, like, she gets where they're coming from in a way that they themselves don't. And so she's able to, like, subvert their ambitions by, like, appealing to their real intentions as opposed to what they're projecting, you know? And that's how she's able to constantly ensnare, I guess, the main character, because he, like, is projecting, like, oh, I don't like Hibari because I know Hibari is quote unquote a boy, but, like, the main character cannot perceive Hibari as a boy because Hibari does not exhibit any male characteristics and is an extremely attractive female, which everyone admits. Like, because most people don't know that Hibari was assigned male at birth. They just think of her as a girl, and so they're just attracted to her, and she's, like, the most popular girl at school. So, like, you know, and it's basically presented as though Hibari, at an early point in life, like, recognized the strengths of femininity from the fact that she had, you know, 2 older and 1 younger sister, and, like, saw what they were doing and just imitated that and became good at being that way. And then, like, because of the fact that, you know, she's very attentive to the way that boys aren't like that, then it makes her lean in on the feminine aspect even more. And in a way, I think the reason she likes the main character is because of the fact that he still likes her even though he knows that she was assigned male at birth. And she has, the only masculine trait she has is, like, being extremely strong, which is more a result of being, like, a Yakuza daughter and, like, you know, taking no shit, which is kind of, again, like a tomboyish trait. And so at the start of the show, when we see her social relationships, she is a lot more manipulative, has a lot more people, like, wrapped around her finger and doing things for her and just, like, giving her money for dates and that kind of thing, because, like, she is competitive in a way where she can bend people around her finger. And what she really kind of wants is a man who will not let her do that. Like, a man who will inspire the kind of loyalty that will make her, you know, not be abusive in relationships and instead just be, like, wholeheartedly nice, which she is towards the main character. And she's able to be that way because she believes in him and the love he has for her that is just evident in spite of his attempts to, you know, hide it. So, yeah, that's why I like Hibari and see her as a role model in the way that she handles her relationships, even if, you know, in her youth she is maybe more manipulative than she, you know, needs to be. But it's also difficult to deal with people who are younger and are not self-aware. Onizuka, I mean, if you've seen this show, this should be, like, just an obvious pick that you get, but he is, he's a teacher. He's the greatest teacher. He has a very impressionistic teaching style that involves literally taking a sledgehammer to the walls of a student's house so that their parents will stop, sleeping in different rooms or whatever. He's a fucking genius. Great fucking show. I need to go watch that again, actually, because I never finished it. This is the main character from a little-known soccer anime called Giant Killing, who is a tactician. He is the team coach. He's sort of like a producer in a way. I guess a coach is a similar kind of thing. Again, a similar type of caretaking role that's about like observing the people who you're dealing with and like, you know, giving them advice on how to, you know, improve their game. But like, I think of, you know, while I do think I make a decent coach, I think that my very roundabout way of communicating is not as helpful to like men or to like sports scenarios where it's just about kind of like giving people very clear instructions quickly. I'm more of like wander around in circles trying to explain something like I'm doing right now. Which is more of like an enveloping, soft, you know, people go to sleep to my videos. People tell me that. So, anyway, I guess I would consider my tone melodic. So, here we have Sakamoto Mio, I think is her name, from Strike Witches. She is like a rank officer in the military who kind of becomes like den mother to the other characters, though she is kind of standoffish, which is, I guess, the problem is that she has too much responsibility. Again, another character who like can't really spend time with her pupil, and so her pupil has to learn more from like the other peers in her age group. So maybe I shouldn't have even put her in role model, but she is a badass. Maybe I should have put her in characters I want to fuck. Cause, now I'm thinking about it and I think I'd rather just have her take care of me. Here we have Celtsy. Celtsy is the opposite of Izaya. She is Izaya's direct foil in that she has the totally opposite intentions of him. Izaya keeps track of everybody's emotions and their intentions so that he can use them. Celtsy does this so that she can try to help people. She just purely is constantly in a state of, I will protect people from the world's attempt to victimize them. I will ask no questions. I am just there to fucking, you know, if somebody's in trouble, I'm going to come in there and bust it up. You know, whoever is innocent is going to be protected. She's a pure, literal superhero, you know, social justice warrior. In a lot of ways, and she comes into contact with Izaya more than anybody else because of the fact that they are both out there actively trying to affect the scenario. But Celtsy is frustrated because whereas Izaya is having fun because nobody can possibly do anything that doesn't benefit him, because ultimately anybody taking action at all benefits him in some way as long as he can just keep propelling them to be chaotic. Celtsy has to actively stop bad things from happening. She has to waste her time that she would rather be spending at home with her husband, who is just obsessed with her, and instead she has to go out and help all these fucking people, you know. And what she would rather do is just have them all come over and hang out and fucking eat hot pot and talk about anime, like, you know, which happens a bunch throughout the series. And like, you know, that kind of environment is what I'm used to, because my family, you know, always had big houses and we would always invite all of our friends over. And like, for most of my late teens and early 20s, you know, every weekend I had like 10 people at my house chilling out, playing video games, talking about whatever happened that week. And like, when I started becoming like a workaholic, I became really disconnected from those friends. And I, you know, just couldn't really bring myself to take an interest in like the games that they were playing and the stuff that they were getting really like obsessed with. So I kind of drifted apart from them. But like, you know, in Celtsy's case, I don't think she even kind of really cares what anybody is like talking about or into. It's just a matter of like, I want to be surrounded by people who I know are good, you know, and that's kind of the mentality I've been more in lately, is like, I'm really not so concerned about like doing things with people so much as like having a lot of good people around and feeling like, you know, hey, the people around me don't care about like how I act. And like, granted, you know, I'd prefer to have the people who are like going to do things with me to be people who want to do the same things as me. But like, you know, just even knowing that I have like the contact and connections of people who are, you know, who I know are good. And that kind of brings us to the next person on this list, which is the grandma from Summer Wars, who I kind of put as like my biggest fucking, I guess Motoko's really big, but that's just because Motoko's perfect. Like, everybody should have her as their biggest influence in life. But the grandma from Summer Wars, this is a character I really connected to because of a write-up that Ghostlightning did about her, that put her into perspective for me, because there's basically this character, when something, there's a major event starts happening where there's like a giant cyber threat that is like going to cause like mass annihilation. And when she finds out about this threat, even though she has no concept of the nature of the threat, she immediately calls everybody she knows that could potentially have any way of solving this threat, to involve themselves. And before any of those people can get involved or the threat can escalate, she ends up dying. But in the wake of that, all these people come together, as a result of her phone call, and a massive effort is put together that ends up saving the world. Essentially, she planted the seed, and like, even though everybody else, enacted this thing, it's because of the fact that this person knew who all the good people were and, brought those people together, that the solution was found. So ultimately, again, it's about knowing who all the good people are, who you can call on in order to accomplish things. And this is, I think, the biggest thing that is missing from American politics in particular, is this kind of like matriarchal systemic spread of knowledge and system of checking in on each other. Like, I look at like the left, right, and I see all these people who are preaching collectivism, and they're all like horribly depressed and not talking to each other, and like have all these fucking terrible social groups that like have nothing but like pained interactions. And it's because most of these people have come from, they've not come from communities. They're like trying to learn how to have a community on the internet because they are disconnected from the one they belong to. And like, it's very difficult for these people to learn how to form into a community that could take action, that could, feel confident enough to feel like, hey, I don't have to be afraid for my life because there are people around me who are like also willing to fucking fight with me to accomplish our goals, So like, I want to be somebody who can bring that kind of people together in the way that she does. And I appreciated this aspect because of Ghostlightning's write-up, where he compared her to his own mother-in-law, because she was a heavily connected person in the Filipino government. And so, like, when I like realized like that connection to like how this could actually like be a real like person, like this is something a woman of this age like can really do in real life, and like I saw that as like, oh, that's like the most powerful fucking thing in the world. Like, there is no better final form than the person who has the trust and contacts of all the good people, So yeah, that's what I want to be. I want to be the person with the trust and contact of all the good people. And that is not an easy thing to earn. You have to be extremely trustworthy. And, the only way I could accomplish that is to let you know how I really feel. Sakamoto is kind of like the medicine seller in a comedy show, and it's so new type he almost doesn't speak. He's like, it's funny because he's got the new type stare, the same as like my avatar on Twitter, or Sabrina from Pokemon, and some other characters that are going to be in my characters that are like me section, or Lane here. The eyes that the eyes like a hawk, and the mouth that looks like it has rarely attempted expression, as the face is too limited a palette for the types of metaphors in which Sakamoto communicates, and thus he is more of a performance artist, but a psychological performance artist whose intentions are good. He is, again, a caretaker, someone just trying to help the people around him, but through very bizarre means. But he's just so fucking dumb high IQ that he fucking literally can solve any problem and just looks like a god at all times. So, I can't say that I'm like that, but I wish I could be. So he's an aspirational figure. And then we got The slime. That time I got reincarnated as a slime. This probably, you know, if you've seen this show, another one that you could fill in the gaps yourself. But I mean, this 39-year-old wizard gets transported to another world because he's trying to protect one of his younger co-workers, you know, his fucking kohai. He's like, I have to protect the younger generation because his younger coworker was getting married and he saw more potential in that man's future than his own, so he took the fucking knife. That's why. And, you know, he was respawned in another world as a slime that ends up being accidentally an all-powerful dragon soul inside of it. And as a result, he can now fucking restructure society in a way where everybody's happy all the time. And that's all he's trying to do, is in a slow and you know, and impressionistic way, just communicate with these monsters that don't really have complex sets of rules. They just understand things in terms of, like, give me direction that will benefit my life. And Rimuru's like, I fucking got you. I can do that. I can, you know, I can turn what feels like the ghetto into what feels like Taj Mahal with this fucking village, and we're all gonna be pals. So, yeah, it's sick. Then you got Nia from Gurren Lagann, who is sort of like another, you know, very, like, impressionistic thinker who, like, wants to understand things so that she can, you know, help people, but, like, doesn't get the answers that she's looking for from the people around her. So she's like, who will give me answers, you know? And she's just, like, always asking. She's always, like, you know, okay, like, why are you feeling this way? Why are you acting this way? Like, why are you acting against your own best interest? That's basically the question that she's constantly asking everybody, is, I don't understand why you're acting against your own best interest, because I can recognize that you are doing that. And her dad won't give her an answer. The people on the Gurren Lagann ship won't give her an answer, but she finds the answer through, you know, communicating with all these people and getting a sense of what they've been through. And then once she has that answer and presents it to them, then they all can understand, like, the thing that they couldn't put, you know, they couldn't frame into words. And, like, so she re-inspires them by, like, understanding them in a way that they can't see past, like, the loss that they've experienced, to see, like, the good that is still there, that can still be relied on, you know, but she can. So, you know, and she continually, like, the fact that her approach is like, hey, look, Kamina was a great man, but, like, he fucking threw it, like, he didn't do it right. Like, you're supposed to live, you know, like, you guys lived, so you're doing it better, you know, keep living and, like, act in your own best interest, please, because that will, you know, that will help you to advance. And I feel like that's what I'm constantly trying to ask of the people around me. Claire Stanfield here from Bakano is a character who I heavily looked up to when I was a teenager, because he literally just thinks he is God, that he is living in a simulation that he created, and that therefore anything he believes he can accomplish, he can accomplish, and nothing has proven him wrong. But it's really more just that he's, like, hyper adaptable to the extent that he will change his entire identity every couple of months, which is something I can heavily relate to. And his identities become very esoteric, such as the Rail Tracer, where he literally just becomes this, like, mythological creature that somebody describes to him, of, like, this beast that lives on the railway and, like, kills anybody who, like, is trying to harm the passengers, you know, because I think it just connects with his sense of justice in such a way that he's like, okay, I just will be that character. Like, I can be, and so I will be, and that therefore I am. Yeah, and that's the mode of thinking, what I would consider Pinkie Pie thinking, that got me through being a depressed teen. So next we have Nyanta from Log Horizon, who is just, like, a kind, charismatic, you know, nurturing, patient communicator, and also badass. Just helps out where he can, and he can help out in a lot of places. Just good old wise cool character. Linda Harlown from Mahou Shoujo Lyrical Nanoha is the leader of the Space-Time Administration Bureau, and she still finds time to adopt Fate and help to raise her into, you know, from an abuse victim to, like, the sweetest girl in the entire universe. So, you know, mad props. Here we've got Bisky fucking from Hunter x Hunter, who is a like old woman, I think, but she has honed somehow the appearance of being a perfectly sculpted little girl, but she also can Hulk out and turn into a gigantic burly fucking monster of destruction. She's a hard ass. She's the ultimate coach. She is fucking ruthless to the students that she teaches, but still has that that tender, loving undercurrent. They're like her fucking children. And she's maybe like a more like a less cynical version of Genkai down here, who I put really big because of the fact that I watched Yu Yu Hakusho when I was really young, and I have a memory of when I was 12 where I started trying to walk like Genkai, where she puts her arms behind her back with her fists together because I thought it was cool. And then somebody like noticed one time but was making fun of me for it, but nobody else understood what he was talking about because it's such a weird pull. And I wasn't even that offended because like I was like, wow, somebody knows Yu Yu Hakusho, but I was shamed out of doing it anymore. But Genkai, similarly to Bisky and from the same author, is a very hard-ass mentor. She does something similar to my own method of how I've said that like I kind of try to make videos where I cast a wide net to get a lot of people involved, and then I like whittle it down to the people who I like by making more esoteric content to like just the few people who will understand it get to experience that. And Genkai kind of does that with her training regimen, where she like opens up an audition basically, and like whittles it down until she has her student who's like, this is the one. I like, all right, Yusuke, you're my guy. Like I'm working exactly with you. You are going to be as strong as me one day, but like you gotta I am going to bust your ass. But in a way, she's the only one who can communicate with Yusuke because Yusuke is so incredibly avoidant because he, is somebody who has been held, like he basically is like the most underprivileged person imaginable, like in the most underprivileged person that a Japanese teenager could relate to, I guess. So not imaginable because obviously that would be far more extreme, but like he's somebody who's like got a single alcoholic mom who's completely shut herself out of reality. He's constantly getting into fights at school. The teachers are against him. Society thinks he's a delinquent, and he just wants to be a good person, but like he has no idea how, and everybody fucking is against him. And like Genkai is the only person who can really like beat into his head who he needs to be, and like she can't do it in a nurturing way because the world needs him to be extremely powerful, extremely fast to deal with its problems, so it's like, if you're gonna be the ultimate badass and you have to train the ultimate badass, you have to give them the ultimate badass training. Sort of like Pai Mei in Kill Bill when he trains Uma Thurman, and he only give her the 5-finger palm heart death punch and not Bill because he's a fucking dick. That's important to remember. Okay, I skipped a few over here. We've got Marielle from Log Horizon is just another kind of like, good community leader. I think like the community she fosters is kind of similar to what I hope to foster around myself, I guess. Then we've got this Komugi, I think is her name, from Hunter x Hunter. Just generally like just a representative of empathy as a general concept, basically. And then we have this girl from Aikatsu. I don't remember her name because I only watched like 8 episodes a year and a half ago. But like, she is this fashionista who's extremely confident about her like sense of design and like completing these complex aesthetics, and looking at the way that her character is presented as like how she comes up with her designs was hugely inspirational to me, because she basically has like a scrapbook where she'll like take photos or like clippings or just like random shit that has like a particular look or color that she can incorporate, and then like just has like a catalog of that, which is the approach I've always wanted to take to making a show called Big Anime Face, where I just like categorically have just like all these clips from shows laid out, and then I can make like conceptual pieces based on having what materials I have, but like it's the gathering of materials that I've always felt like I have to like take time off and just spend like all this time getting like this huge base before I can create anything, when in reality I should have just been collecting things all along, you know. But I think I stopped doing that just because I had some major hard drive failures like 5 years ago, and I became terrified of like collecting things because I fucking lost it all before. But you know, as a result, I don't have a palette. So you know, I mean, aside from the posters on my walls, I guess, which are probably where I come to for the most inspiration. Anyway, Shiryuki Hime here, another just hardworking, overexerting person who, you know, needs to learn, like, her tragic flaw is that she needs to learn how to rely on people more, and, you know, so tragic, wow, but I feel similarly. But, you know, she's, like, more perfect than I could ever hope to be. Oshino Meme, pretty much the same story as Medicine Seller above, not really much else to add. Kenshin Himura, somebody who just, like, dedicated himself to, like, helping whoever is directly in front of him in that given moment, as, like, that is sort of the most effective way to help people, because if you try to help people through scheming and plotting and trying to build superstructures, everything changes, too many intentions get involved, there's too much chaos that you have to manage, that, you know, that not enough people will be capable of participating in a system where there is so much injustice at the foundation. And so, like, you know, righting that injustice throughout society is like the first step towards actually being in a position where you can build a structure. And, you know, Kenshin takes that upon himself to be like, okay, I'm just going to right injustices as I go, and I hope other people will copy me. And, you know, the people around him are the people who copy him. And, you know, hopefully the people around me copy what I do. Next we have Ryder, who, you know, is the opposite of all of the people who are shit in Fate Zero. He is the heart and soul of the series, the one person who understands, similar to Kenshin, that it's about, like, it's about being in the moment, having, you know, your current ambition and guiding your men in service of it. Like, what people want is a sense of purpose. You give that to them through your, you know, desire to have the conquest that they also believe in, and they believe in your desire to get it, so you need to believe in their desire to help you get it. It's all about everybody believing they can do it together and doing it, you know? And that's what Ryder tries to do. And even if his conquest, you know, even if his own life comes to an end eventually, you know, and therefore his people's, like, the spirit of what he represented lives on in the next generation with Waver Velvet, who gets his own show and is a sweetie pie. Ashitaka, I mean, what's there not to love? He's the, just like morally, he's basically just going through the story with an open mind, trying to find the moral truth of the situation, reacting as, you know, things appear once again, and, you know, like, never being willing to use force unless he is absolutely sure of its necessity, because he has to, you know, make up for the one time that he did something violent, essentially. And, you know, just being strong enough and a bad enough dude to not get killed in the process of being morally absolutist, you know, which, of course, the structure of the script allows him to follow through on. Saori Bajina here is just a really good friend. Somebody who, you know, organizes her friends well, is attentive of their needs, is super polite, is, you know, even kind of ashamed of the fact that she is attractive, and, like, because it doesn't really reflect, like, she doesn't want to be seen as somebody who's, like, off-putting or, like, not reflective of, like, how she wants, like, what she wants people to get out of interacting with her. And, like, you know, in my mind, I've said that before, that, like, it was easier for me to be a guy because I can make a decent looking guy. I can make an inviting looking guy, but I wasn't convinced I could be a girl that anybody would want to look at, you know, or would be an inviting presence. But the reality is that the personality that I can put on the facade of being, like, an approachable guy in situations where I feel, you know, like, I trust the people around me and I feel comfortable. but like it's ultimately a defense mechanism, and it's not like representing how I really feel, and it makes it so people can't really do much for me, you know? And I think that's maybe a similar, you know, condition for Saori here, that like she's always doing things for other people, but like who can really help her when she's not showing them what she really looks like, you know? And that's kind of the realization I had, is that if you're always just trying to like get people to do things, then they don't really understand like what's in it for you, and that makes it hard for them to trust you, you know? So yeah, I guess that's what I see as her flaw, but nonetheless, she's still a good person, you know, obviously. Integra Wingrate's Helsing is just a badass fucking chick. She's cool. I don't really remember enough about Helsing to know why I considered her a role model. This guy from Gaku and Alice, just super fucking sweet. He literally like becomes like the mother to the little girl because like she needs her mommy, so he becomes her mommy. It's sweet. Lane is the god of the Wired. Very basically similar to why I put Motoko up here, except that Lane kind of gets thrust into the position of like having to deal with her identity in front of everyone, which is something I certainly relate to, but the fact that she kind of is able to resolve that by the end is admirable, I suppose. Here we have, I don't remember this dude's name, but he's the guy from Sangatsu no Lion who mentors the main character. And, you know, Kiriyama Rei is a character who the way that he feels about the world is something I heavily relate to as, like, how I felt when I was a teenager. I would say that I've, you know, moved beyond a lot of the feelings he has. But this character is, like, who I want to, you know, like, closer to who I would want to be, you know, in that show. As somebody who is capable of helping others to, you know, to reach the status that I have, even though I myself am still competing. You know, I'm still in the game, but also like helping the new people to, you know, to hopefully advance even past me if they can. While also just like helping people in multiple ways, because he has this whole system he set up back in his home village where like during the winter months, they have these buses like bring all the old folks to this place so they can fucking play shogi, and like they're given like groceries to take home with them, just because he realized like, oh, all the old people are fucking trapped indoors during the winter, so like let me set this thing up and it'll be good for the community. And it's like, wow, what a fucking genius. I hope I can build something that helpful one day. Here we've got our sweet trans princess from Tamako Market. She's just a really good, nice person who runs a flower shop, and I hope I can run some kind of business that makes people happy eventually. I mean, I already do, I guess, but, you know, something cuter than what I've done before. Here we've got the main character from The Night is Short, Walk On Girl. I guess I would put her in a similar category to Rurouni Kenshin, as just somebody who's kind of meandering through the world, doing exactly what she wants while having everybody's best interest in mind. And it's just like she's just is a hero in the way that a real person can be, I guess. And that's sick, dude. Senku, he just has the raw faith in humanity that I wish to feel, and the just burning desire to bring humanity into the future. You know, like his mentality towards science is like, we're all gonna make it, we're all gonna survive. It is never acceptable to let something fall by the wayside if you could have prevented it. You know, don't dwell on your mistakes, but constantly be trying to seek solutions, because that's the only way that you can make up for them, you know? And he's a fucking baller ass motherfucker for that. Mina Tepes, she wants to bring all her motherfucking people to glory. There's a song by Portugal the Man called All My People, where they sing, bring all my people with me. And Mina is the princess of vampires. She pays off the gross national debt of Japan so that they will build a zone for vampires, and she brings them there and tries to manage the insanely chaotic fucking madness of vampire culture into something that isn't a blight on the world that everyone wants gone. And while also, protecting these people and stuff. And it's fucking intense, and she's a badass. And one day I'll read the rest of Dance in the Vampire Bund. We got Brock from Pokemon. He wants to be the ultimate Pokemon breeder. What more can I say? Been an influence on me since I was a kid. Gintoki from Gintama, I could have put him in the category of characters that I already feel like, because I relate to Gintoki's particular negative traits. All of the ways that he's an obnoxious fucking pain in the ass are the same ways that I'm an obnoxious fucking pain in the ass. But like Kenshin, he is ultimately an empathetic force of good who tries to help people out where he can, if he feels like it's necessary. But he also is willing to cheat and bullshit and just doesn't give a fuck. And honestly, I will never give up that part of myself either. We have the Kumijo Ayane, I think, from Shimoneta. She is just so brash and confident and just willing to fucking do anything to be able to say dirty jokes. God damn it. You will never convince her to hide any part of her identity. She is going to, no matter how illegal it is, she will not stop doing it. And I appreciate that. Then we've got Galco. She's just another sweet, helpful person who, again, is very reactive in the moment. She's just somebody who people come to her because her presence is comforting and she helps them out. And she's always just down to help out. And, it's funny because I wouldn't have projected onto her initially, just because even though she is another blonde-haired, blue-eyed character, she has massive fucking tits and is quite tall. But, a thick girl with big fake tits maybe is a more reasonable final form I can take than a lolly girl. Who knows? Reagan here from Mob Psycho 100. He's a shyster, but his methodology is that the customer has to leave happy, and ultimately that's all the customer really wants. He really gets that. He's yeah, it really doesn't matter. All that matters is that they feel satisfied and they got their money, because that's all you're really getting anyways, these people need to feel like their effort is going towards something. Their effort, as represented by their money, is going towards something that is making them happier. And so they will just buy into your narrative of how you accomplished that for them in exchange for their money. And that is what Reagan understands, and he will gladly take their money. Personally, I am not as invested in having money. So it's difficult for me to approach things with the cynicism that Reagan does, but, maybe I should have put him in characters I would pursue romantically if he was a girl, because I want to be with somebody who is just, in it for the money, so that I don't have to worry about being in it for the money. Nazca is, she's basically Jesus Christ as an anime girl. What more could I say? Holo from Spice and Wolf, she is just always fucking on top of shit, man. I haven't watched the show in a long time, but I remember her being cool. We're getting into the lower level of the characters I put on this list who I have less justification for. Last Order. I don't know why I put her in characters I admire. She's somewhere between that and characters that I feel like, I guess, because she's just the way that she communicates is relatable to me, and her intentions, I guess, are relatable to me. I guess that I considered her to be ultimately a better person than me, so I put her in this part of the list. I guess that's the logic. Yang Wen Li, doing what has to be done at his own chagrin. Boss motherfucker. Jing, King of Bandits. Another just new type badass. I think I really connected with this manga because of the fact that Jing just kind of figures shit out, and the adventures are always just insane like aesthetic experiences that make more emotional sense than logical, if any sense at all. But Jing somehow can always navigate the scenario and come out on top without really having to even explain how the fuck he's doing it. So I like that about him. And then we have that muscle dude from Mob Psycho, who's just like a nice guy and very protective of his friends, which is something I respect a lot. Is somebody who's like, oh, you're fucking with our boy, well, you're going to die. Like, you know, I like that attitude. I also put the big sister from Ranma 1/2 on here because she's just, you know, like a natural caretaker, somebody who is just soothing and pleasant. And wouldn't that be nice if people thought I was that instead of the exact opposite? So, all right, so moving into characters I would pursue romantically. I think that this is a much easier category to summarize. I feel like I have a type that is pretty clear if you know enough of these characters. They are all definitely what I would consider to be more masculine women. Many of them even like sort of having non-binary identities. Very boisterous, competitive, intense, confident characters. You know, not all of them are necessarily over the top, but they're all like very self-assured, and you know, they're also people who like to be around people that are more emotional than themselves, perhaps, but also people who like understand them. So like Haruhi, who is my ultimate waifu. And, you know, when I first watched Haruhi, I mostly related to Haruhi. I saw her as a character who was just like me. And, you know, I also related to Kyon in a certain sense. Like, I think that my personality was closer to Haruhi's, but, like, the kind of person that I ultimately want to be is somebody who's more like what Kyon is for Haruhi, I guess. You know, like, I guess even though, how do I put it? It's like, it's, even though I've put on, I'm good at being unreasonable, but, at the core, I prefer to be the more, not reasonable. That's like the wrong word for it. How do I put it? Like, the one who is not necessarily at the vanguard, but the one who is like backing the person at the front, you know? Like, I prefer to be the Anthe to an Utena, if you will. And Utena is on here somewhere. Where is she at? There she is. You know, like, I guess I see it as like, I am a very like surly, kind of swarthy person, and as a guy that makes me seem like a really intense kind of guy. But like, I see more emotional men as having more in common with women, even if they are very masculine, you know? Like, I would think of like the kinds of guys who are like in prison as probably being people who think in a way that is more similar to like the way that more women tend to think, which is like, again, like a more social view of your surroundings than like understanding things more on the emotional level, understanding people's intentions via their emotions, you know, being able to instinctively navigate social situations, which is a way that you can be successful in a lot of non-traditional you know, fields such as crime. But, you know, in a sense, I guess what I admire in women is that they can be someone who is more aggressive and more like capable of defending themselves while still being able to be more emotional and more like sure of themselves. You know, like, I think the reason that the princely archetype in fiction is so popular, of like the girl who all the other girls fall in love with, is that like the girls are afraid of the boys, you know? the boys, they want the boys because they want the protection of the boys, but they also know that that protection comes with, it comes with the aggression that comes with being somebody who has to use violence or has to perform aggression in their day-to-day lives on people, and and then have to have that aggression sort of soothed in some way where, for a lot of them, it might manifest as reproduction of aggression, so like there's a reason as a woman to fear men. But at the same time, if you are a woman, you don't necessarily feel that you can rely on other women to have the strength to actually, physically protect you or emotionally protect you. And so, for me, as somebody who feels like an emotionally sensitive woman but has developed the ability to be like an outlandish, masculine, competitive character, I appreciate women who can do it with sincerity, because I don't do it with sincerity. And I've always looked at myself as a parody of the projection that I was giving. And I think that how much you understood it was a parody depends on what depth you looked at my content at. Like if you were listening to Bedroom Bedrock, where like the whole, one of the early lyrics in the song is, got no bitches, no women either for that matter. Like it's a deconstruction of the idea of like having bitches, because I'm like separating that as a concept from like actual women, that like I don't want bitches, I want a woman, but I don't have that either. Like that, if you're looking at it through that lens, you see how it's a parody of the masculine presenting character. And I mean, if you were around for the Brony days or my early anime videos where I was like a little bit more of a feminist, then you would see that character facade sort of dropping more, I guess. But in a world where it became that many of the things that had helped me to connect to my own gender identity were coming under fire from what should have been my team, it was difficult for me to ally myself with, the people like the feminists and the people who I, at one point was pushing their agenda. Because, I am a woman and it makes sense for me to be a feminist. But, these are characters who I see as like strong, physically strong, mentally strong, protective, people who are capable of taking care of a surly woman, So Haruhi, obviously, top tier candidate. Nothing that she says or wants to do is confusing to me. I would be absolutely down for all of her machinations, but I also would be able to ground her and kind of help reason through things in the same way that Kyon could. I definitely want to do a cosplay with Mei where she is Haruhi and I'm Kyonko, because Kyonko is the best gender swap character design of all time. And Haruhi, in fact, I forgot to put Kyonko on my list of characters that I just am. I should have added her to that. But Haruhi here, I relate to her pretty hard, but she's even more intense and forward and charismatic and sure of herself than I am. And, I can't necessarily be the kind of like more patient and caring and slow person that I like to be if I'm trying to be Haruhi, Then we got Diesel-san here from Shirobako. She's maybe a little bit closer to my level of intensity, but man, she is just a go-getter. She's just like, what can I do? Like I want to be involved. I want to get better. Tell me what I can do. And I'll fucking do it. And she's the hottest of the girls, and she's always just fucking down to read some Dost. She's always talking about her fucking Dost. She's on a Dostathon the whole show. She's all about that fucking Dost, dude. I've never read any Dost, but I want to, just because I want to get on her level. I want to know what she's all about. I would read Dost just for the opportunity to hook up with Diesel-san. Maybe the only reason I haven't read it yet is that she's not real, so I won't get anything. I won't get the chance to date her out of reading it. Kobayashi, just extremely steadfast, reliable person. I wouldn't have nearly as much difficulty communicating with her as her dragon companion does. But I think we get along great. I mean, what is there not to like? She's pretty much ideal. We've got Tosaka Rin. She's just, a complete package. Pretty much a type A ideal. There's nothing more to it than that. CC is more like mysterious and crazy and hard to read. I don't really know. I mean, I haven't seen all of Code Geass R2. I don't really know much about what her true ambitions are, like what she would want in a partner or out of life, because she's always kind of been in a position of just kind of allowing herself to be a prop in, the machinations of things, just because she doesn't really see another, thing she can do, I guess. Which is, somewhat relatable to me, and definitely, like, I tend to look at people like that as, like, like, I want them to believe in themselves so that they will try to do that thing, because I see, like, okay, CC is, like, super fucking powerful. Like, there's no reason whatever she wanted to do, she couldn't do, She just needs the encouragement. Kagami from Lucky Star has the best fashion sense and the coolest eye shape of any anime character, in my opinion. She's very grounded, very reasonable. She will call you out on your bullshit. She's a bit of a tard wrangler, and I'm married to a tard wrangler. So these are all characters that I see a lot of Mei in, by the way, if it's not obvious from just looking at them, just looking at their faces. Ukyo from fucking Ranma 1/2, super grounded. She's basically like Applejack from My Little Pony, where she's like, just like, I do this job, it's all I do. She likes Ranma, and she just wants to fucking pay his bills by making okonomiyaki. She is, and she'll feed him every day. That's all I would fucking, this is just like, this is just like the most simplistic kind of ideal wife I could picture. Whereas on the other hand, the most complex kind of ideal wife is the absolute spurg out insanity schizo posting of Arakawa Under the Bridge. This is a woman who will not judge you if you go broke. I mean, like, she's completely content to live under a bridge with you. So, the lack of expectations is comforting. I don't know how much I would love life under the bridge, but if I got to spend it with this beautiful woman, voiced by Maya Sakamoto, I don't think I would complain. I might be more... I don't know. Maybe she would prefer somebody who was more reasonable. Though I'm definitely more reasonable than she is. I mean, I would be able to communicate with her better than the guy that she is with, as I have a more similar thinking to her. But I'm also, like, older than a lot of these characters as they are in the show. Like, I kind of have to... I mean, CC is like fucking 70 or some ancient or some shit. I don't know how old she's supposed to be. Kobayashi's probably closer to my age. Diesel's in her 20s. Like, I have to think about, like, what these characters would be like aged up, like, if they maintain their personalities, and it's kind of like, in my mind, I really think of it not so much as, like, oh, like if me now got with them in the show. It's more like if when I was their age I hooked up with them, like how would that have ended up? Or like if they were now my age, like what would they be like, you know? And either way, I mean, either way the answer is it would be sick, dude. This is another just fucking badass girl who just basically is like, yeah, Senku, you're really smart, and I think you have humanity's best interest in mind, so I'm going to throw down for you and my sister. That's what I fucking do. I throw down. I dig it. Rukia, she throws down. Minnie Mae Hopkins, she is a sexual deviant psychopath who likes to throw grenades at people. I don't know if I could actually handle dating her, but, you know, it would be really hot. Yamada here, in many ways, is the character who reminds me the most of May, or maybe the most of Pantsu Party. Like the character that May is like parodying with Pantsu Party reminds me of Yamada from Biga to HK, because she's a girl whose mentality is that she's going to like prove that she like her competitiveness with everyone around her, like she's like a straight A student, but in order to also be like the queen of the school, she has to be the one who fucks the most guys. So she's gonna fuck 100 guys, but she has no idea how to approach this, because deep inside she actually is just looking for love. And the guy who is like perfect for her is like this kind of dweeby dude who's a fucking coward. So like even when she like reconciles with herself that she wants to fuck this guy, she cannot get him to do it because he's such a emotional, bitch about it, that like she has to basically like work to get him to sleep with her. And it's adorable and perfect. She is definitely girlfriend material. The biggest one I have here is, of course, Kanbaru Suruga, who is actually a lesbian tomboy. She reads lots of books. She's funny. She's a lolicon. She likes girls. But she also likes to hang out with Araragi, and like, I think she would be into trans girls, so there'd be no concerns there. I mean, Kanbaru is just perfect. Like, she's got Miyuki Sawashiro's voice. There's literally, like, find a flaw, Find a single fucking flaw. You can't do it. It's fucking impossible. She's probably, of any of these characters, she's probably the most, like, richly explored by the series, other than maybe, like, Haruhi. And still absolutely perfect. Like, at no point is there something incongruent with ideal girlfriend material. So that's why she's kind of the biggest. Even though Haruhi is also, because Haruhi's the hottest anime girl, but Kanbaru is the most perfect. So there's also some girls in here who are more like spunky and fun and cutesy. Again, like, we got Taco Girl here. This is another, like, Pantsu Party. This is, like, more of a direct influence on the Pantsu Party character, I think, is the existence of this character. May has not seen Kyoran Kazoku Nikki yet, but I think she'll love this fucking girl as well. And her husband is also somebody who, is sort of a motherly figure. This is the out of control fucking pink girl from Slime. Pretty much as soon as she respects Rimuru, she's willing to basically just go along with whatever Rimuru's up to. So, she's cool. Oh god, fucking, is it Akane from Ranma? She's just a fucking good girl. Just a really good girl. She's fucking precious. And I think she likes quote unquote guys like me, you know what I mean? I think oh God, these girls are all just so good. Like, there's not enough different about them for me to feel like I could really single them out. Homura is, like, in particular, the fact that she is, like, willing to go to such lengths to protect Madoka. You know, like, it's not just that she, like, can physically protect her. She, like, goes through universes of unending pain out of this obsession, you know, with this need to protect Madoka. And, like, you know, she's kind of got that, you know, time traveling, schizo posting, I can see time, fucking, you know, deep, black-hearted cyber angel thing going on as well, which I'm a fan of. You know, Ahiro Kobushi, she likes pain. She likes to get bit by animals and shit. She might be a little. I don't think I could really inflict. I think I would be trying to rehabilitate her. Try to see if I could give her love that try to see if I could alleviate her addiction to abuse, maybe de-escalate it or something. Nanoha is the perfect father figure of a woman. I mean, the existence of Nanoha makes me want to become Fate. So that I could be Fate with Nanoha. Nothing makes me happier than seeing that just like artwork of them in their, you know, just like marriage artwork of Fate and Nanoha, and them with their daughter Vivio. It's so fucking adorable. And the scene when you know, Vivio's like running towards them and she falls over, and Fate wants to like rush in, but Nanoha's like, no, she has to get up by herself, like, don't fucking go help her. And like, I literally have had moments like that in real life where like I wanted to, like, you know, I was like worried because a kid is crying and like being a brat, and I'm like, oh, they're crying, and they're like, no, you cannot, like, he's just being a brat. You gotta fucking let it happen, you know? So, it was a relatable scene for me, and I thought it was fucking adorable that you know, that Nanoha stepped into that role in that moment, and was like, it's a perfect parenthood. They are ideal, child rearing duo, and also combat duo who fucking protects the Earth. And other planets. In fact, time, space itself, they help to protect. So that's pretty fucking advanced. You know, I think my biggest frustration with Sword Art Online is always that Asuna should be stronger than Kirito. And maybe I was looking at it wrong, because, you know, it's wrong of me to judge Kawahara for, like, in my mind, I look at Sword Art Online and I see the women are always in distress, and Kirito is there to save the day. And even though, like, Asuna is like the best player in the game, Kirito for no reason is better. He's just the best because he understands the game. He understands the creator. He relates to the creator the best. And it's just like, it just always kind of felt to me like the story is trying to suggest that Asuna is doing things the most correctly and is like the best, or has the highest potential within the realm of like following the logic of the game as it is presented, whereas like Kirito, because he has this like deeper instinctual connection to the developer, or to like just the way games work in general by the time we get to season 2, because he's just a new type, like, that he just is the best. But like, you know, in season 2, Kirito becomes a woman. I don't know if it was the game interpreting his true heart or something, but like, I don't know if it's fair to judge Kirito as strictly male, and therefore the story as being strictly a male power fantasy where like the strong women are sublimated to a boy, when Kirito has sort of like I don't know, a non-binary streak and plenty of identity problems and fucking PTSD. And, maybe Reki Kawahara incorporates so much sexual violence into his story because he has a history with it or something. I have no idea. I can't judge what this man uses to fucking help him get through life. So, point being, Asuna, if she was my wife, I would be counting on her to be the one who is the badass. Yeah, Senjo Gahara, fucking, all these girls are just hot. Like, they're all just hot. I can't say much more. Any of these characters are characters who either, like, a lot of them are, like, lesbian or bisexual in the context of the show, like Alpha here, or Subaru, this fucking girl, I don't remember her name, from, Strike Witches, some of the Kanan here, some of them I think are lesbian coded or perhaps like repression coded. It's unfair to like ascribe that to a character, I think, without knowing the intent of the author. But like particularly like Panty and Stocking, I feel like there's this undercurrent that they themselves bring up sometimes of the idea that like if they weren't both repressed lesbians, they could just love each other, but instead they have to like go and just fucking, one has to go and like just eat constantly and get sexually abused, and the other one has to go and fuck every guy that she possibly can in sight out of like this insecurity over like, I don't know, proving how not gay they are. But I could just trap Panty by pretending to be a boy and then reversing on her and making her realize she's gay by giving her better sex than any boy has ever given her. So that would be my strat. Obviously, Jessie is fine with some gender play. There's also a few boys in here because we've got Yuri from Yuri on Ice, the Russian version. All the fiery emotional passion of a woman and the straightforward aggression of a pretty boy. But I mean, just look how soft he looks. I mean, how could I say no? I also put Krusty from Log Horizon in here mostly because of the fact that like I relate heavily to Lanessia as somebody who is just lazy and sits around in my own head not wanting to deal with the stuff around me because I don't really know what like in what way I could be useful. And Krusty kind of comes along and is like, it's like she is like a would-be manipulative person, but is out-manipulated by this other person who she can't see through because he's just, too direct in a way that she can't be, and too quick to just like put things at her feet and then fuck off and like kind of force her to act. And, it's like, I need that kind of thing to be done to me. I'm the kind of person who literally, like, if you can find somehow like a way to like trick me and force me, I won't like, I don't know, I don't look down on it. I feel like I deserve it, so I guess that's why like Krusty is fine. And then there's also this guy from Nozaki-kun who's just a sweet fucking boy. Yeah, the rest of these are just like hot chicks, so we'll move along. Characters I want as friends and community members. A lot of these are characters that I relate to, but like they don't necessarily like fulfill the type of role that I myself would want to, in their community. But like I would want them as friends. I would want them around. As I said when I said I want to be the old lady with the phone full of contacts, this is the phone full of contacts that I want to have. So obviously, Simon from Gurren Lagann is kind of the ultimate like symbol of a well-balanced person. somebody who, is a good leader because they figure out, like, they listen to people, figure out what has to be done, and fucking do it, and they're not so good at, the stuff that Simon fails at is the stuff that I would be good at, which is like the keeping track of everybody's needs and like, making decisions about, or, trying to make decisions about who should be doing what, where, and at what, how to deal with people and stuff like that. The stuff that, that Simon finds confusing. And like Kamina would also find that stuff confusing. So I can't say I necessarily relate to him in that sense, but I do heavily relate to Kamina's caretaker role with Simon, that he tells him, like, believe in me who believes in you, because that is kind of the message that I want to send to my own audience, is like, if you feel like you're just like me, then I want you to know that people who feel just like me have the opportunity to live a happy life, not necessarily that you're gonna be the best person in the world, but I guarantee that there is a future for you that you can be satisfied with. It's just about continually seeking and navigating in search of it in spite of everything, and obviously it'll be a lot harder for a lot of people than it was for me, or is for me, continues to be for me, but obviously it wasn't a bed of roses. It certainly isn't for Kaiji. Kaiji is like, the fucking everything is against this motherfucker, and he still has the heart to be a good person. So Kaiji is just like the most raw, like, likable, fucking, like, humane good guy that you have to root for. Kenshiro, just fucking badass superhero man out there to just punch people's heads off for being dicks. I have a lot of just big, strong heroes in this category because obviously, like, I want to be surrounded by people who are physically strong and, like, willing to fucking lay down their lives for the cause. Because, like, I have this eternal fear that if I ever really tried to affect any kind of meaningful change in the world to better the lives of people, I will be killed for it. Like, in order to make people, have the power to better themselves, they have to stop relying on the structure that is deliberately creating problems in their lives so that they can sell them solutions. And if you start making it so you subvert, if you subvert these people who are trying to control the populace, they will want you gone. And depending on who they are, they might be willing to just eliminate you. And I don't know who those people are or what line I will cross to piss them off. I've read enough Lovecraft to know that, you could just step down the wrong alley and a fucking, billionaire pedophile's hired goon is fucking strangling you, and everybody's just gonna say, oh, he was suicidal because he's a trans, so I figured, I was putting myself in someone else's shoes and not thinking that they would probably gender me correctly, but so these are, toughs like Kenshiro and Shizuo, kind-hearted, trustworthy people who will go to fucking bat for, anyone they believe in. And as long as, as long as I'm on the right side, I think these guys will recognize it in me. And if I was ever on the wrong side, they would recognize that too. I've got like a lot of just whole casts in here, like the whole cast of Log Horizon, the whole cast of That Time I Got Reincarnated as a Slime, the whole cast of Shirobako, most of the Gurren Lagann cast is in here somewhere. They're all just shows about good people and good communities. Steins Gate, all the major characters from Karikano are somewhere in here. The Melancholy of Haruhi Suzumiya, the main cast. Most of the Do-Da-Da-Da characters are in here. Just good-natured people trying to make their community work in the most non-violent means that they can. But, being protective of their own and, you know, defending their friends from anything, from any amount of peril at any expense of their own personal, you know, comfort. Even some of the ones whose motivations maybe aren't necessarily the most pure. Like I have the, you know, student council members of Utsuna, because I think that if they were given the right cause, they would be good guys. Or, you know, if they had a support network that would help them to deal with their interpersonal problems and emotional issues, you know, maybe they would be helpful. Yeah, we've just got lots of cool fucking bros in here. Lots of otaku, lots of just, you know, like badass spies or cops, like people who I think are, you know, like would actually make decent, you know, enforcement in my community, that people I trust to not be fucking corrupt, like Mad Bull. Yeah, it's just like if I was going to build a village, all these fucking people are invited. I have a lot. I'm not going to go through all of them. They're all just good fucking people, you know. Some of them, you know, become reformed. Some of them improve over the course of their show. Some of them, you know, if they were in the right community, would have an easier time. But I trust all these characters. So, all right, here's characters that I want to parent, mentor, and teach. Because if I'm, you know, I've been saying I want to be this caretaker, matriarchal figure. You know, I might be able to call on all these people and I'll help them out if they need anything from me. But these people are self-assured, complete humans. You know, like some of them are younger at the start of the series, but by the end, these are characters who know themselves, who are on the way to their goals, who, you know, if they were to call on me, it would be because they, you know, they needed something specific. But these are the characters who I'm going to work with, who I'm going to try to, you know, help them understand themselves, find their way to a better future. And there are types of problems that I think I could help people with more than most, because of the fact that I have explored them in a lot of depth. And some of these characters need some real fucking guidance. They need somebody who can really help them to deal with their complexes, because some of these characters are really troubled in ways that society is not built to address, you know. Now, like, I put the first thing here is just the whole cast of Soul Eater, because, like, Soul Eater is basically, like, just a world where everybody is highly impressionistic and highly emotionally driven, and everyone's trying to deal with their identity as they come up through life. And I relate to a lot of these kids and their struggles, and I think I could definitely help them out. Cromartie High School as well, you know, is a bunch of delinquent men who, you know, again, are like, I really think that there's, like, men who lack a firm father figure, you know, gravitate towards, like, motherly, attentive women. But, like, if they don't have, like, some kind of male role model to base themselves on, then, like, in that relationship, they might be, like, more reliable in that they will, like, throw themselves at whatever will, like, allow them to help. But, like, you know, it's difficult to actually, like, be yourself a mentor and, like, a father figure when you have nothing to base it off of, you know? And so for me, it's like, I think that I could be the comforting motherly presence that these people are seeking, while also understanding, because of the gaps in, you know, in what between, like, these wayward sons and what a masculine ideal is, you know, that I could help them navigate how to not have to, you know, not have to sacrifice their emotions or put up these facades and these weird masks in order to accept themselves as men, you know? I think that's what sort of tortures the characters of Cromartie, is that they are afraid that their weird emotions will make them less of a man. And so they cover it up by acting extra macho and having tough faces, you know. Um, but you know, they need to learn that masculinity is not just macho posturing, I guess. So yeah, you've got the sky crawlers, where you've got the children who are literally raised for war. All they need is a parent, and you know, one of them has become a parent and is trying to navigate that. I would like to help her out. I want to take care of them. And there's people have said that like the children are like a metaphor for like otaku and things like that. I think they're more just a metaphor for like anyone born into a consumerist system. So yeah, I mean, otaku obviously are like an extremified example of that, but you know, if you want to understand what like the end result of like hyper capitalization through war, through the propagation of like war as you know, as the fueler of the economy and culture, then this is a good movie. And you know, it's an effective metaphor for war. War is an effective metaphor for every other aspect of, you know, the reality of that of the consumerist system. Anyway, figure 17, this girl who, you know, really struggles to communicate and is very sensitive. I think I know what kind of questions I could ask her to help her express herself. But you know, she has the clone bifurcation of her ego, I guess, that comes out to fucking help her. So, you know, I could help them both. I could be both there. They need a mother. So yeah. We got Manabi from Manabi Straight, who also needs a mother because her mom or her dad is like playing the role of her mom after the death of her mother, but he is not able to successfully give her the type of attention that she's seeking, and the woman that he ends up with, she struggles to communicate with. And I don't know if her dad would have been interested in me or me in him. I mean, he seems like, you know, he seems fine. But I would certainly, you know, would cherish the opportunity to get to take care of a kid as fucking amazing as Manabi. Somebody who, when I was actually her age, was a huge influence on me and a huge motivator, and somebody who I would say that, like, my tactics as a caretaker when I was younger were more inspired by her. Like, I saw this show when I think I was 16, and I ran an anime club not long after that, where I wore, like, a Haruhi armband, and I basically tried to act like somewhere between Haruhi and Manabi as a way of approaching, like, running my club. And so, like, you know, it's funny to think of the idea that the character is trapped in the eternal stasis of being 17 going on 18. So, like, at one point, she was, like, a big sister to me, and now I want to be a big sister to her because she has not been able to evolve because there's no more Manabi Straight. This is the bizarre superposition of trying to describe anime characters. Anyway, yeah, the girl from Hitohira, that's another character who I connected with at the time, so I feel like, you know, I could help her out. I watched that around the same time when I was 16. You know, like, just a lot of these are kids who I relate to who just went through the same things I did. Like, a lot of these, like sexually rambunctious kids who, like, you know, need somebody to, like, teach them about, like, their boundaries and respecting their bodies and, like, not being fucking, not being forwardly sexual as a means of getting attention. You know, without, like, denying their feelings or making them feel like they are wrong to, you know, to like, want, I guess, to eventually, you know, be that way, but, like, just kind of encouraging them, like, you don't really understand, like, what you're doing. You need to wait till you have, like, a more formed body. Here we've got a couple of, like, this is actually I don't know if this character would be considered trans because they are dressing as a woman to compete in women's shogi in order to pay like a debt to their mother. But like, I don't remember if there was implication that they, you know, that there's more to it than that in the show. But these two kids, you know, very impressionistic shogi players, need somebody who can communicate with their strange minds. I don't know if that's just like a thing with shogi players in general, because I feel like Sangatsu no Lion presents characters very similar to that. I don't know much about shogi, but maybe I should take an interest. Yeah, just there's lots of just fucking adorable, good-natured kids in here that would just be a blast to help out. Obviously, the whole cast of Sayonara Zetsubo Sensei all have mental disorders, and that's easier for me to work with than normal people. So, you know, I guess it's just like this odd collection of misfit kids that I want to help put on the right path. All the fucking Ava kids, they all need a mom, literally. That's like the issue in the show, is the lack of having a functional mother figure in their lives. And all of it being thrust onto poor Misato, who is not in a position to deal with it. You know, the Durarara kids want to help set they're all good kids, but you know, like, a lot of these are not people who necessarily, like, need a ton of guidance. Like, the kids who I think of myself as, like, oh, I want to teach them, like, you know, are more the, like, most of these kids who I, like, put the whole classroom in here is, like, you know, these are kids that it's not that I think they need me to, like, parent them. I would, you know, but, like, I don't think most of these are, like, are children who are like in desperate need of a parent, with the exception of like the Ava kids, the Sky Crawlers, kids. I mean, anybody who's like, you know, missing a parent, like Ku from fucking Haibane Renmei. You know, did I put Mayoi in here? I feel like I probably must have somewhere. Oh, all the kids from fucking Made in Abyss. They desperately need a mother figure in their lives. Rika could use some love. Faye Valentine, before she got fucking like frozen or whatever. You know, I want to protect this smile. Last Order, definitely. I mean, Last Order is perfect. Like, she doesn't really need, like, anything. Like, she is, if anything, an icon. Dororo. Oh, Dororo's the one who I want to mother the most. Dororo is the most in need of a parent. I feel a powerful need to protect Dororo. Also, this girl from Maho Shoujo site, she definitely is in need of a decent parent. I mean, Erica here from Heartcatch Precure is like my Daughteru. This is like what I expect the product of me to be like. You know, like that's kind of what you know, characters like Chino or Triella from Gunslinger Girl, or this girl from Deno Coil. I don't remember her name, but also Kiri Minagi from Boogie Pop. Is what I'm like afraid would happen if I died and my daughter like was obsessed with me the way that she is with her dad, because the character Kiri Masaichi in the story is a pop psychologist. Like, he is basically does what I do, and writes books that are basically like schizo post disguised as some meaningful psychological thing, and like she like just thought her dad was the fucking coolest, and her mom was like dead since she was a kid, so her dad kind of fulfilled a motherly role as well. So, you know, and then he died, so now she's just like this confused fucking Batman hero running around trying to help everybody and like involving herself in everyone's problems, and like it's like, you know, traits that I also identify with, but I fear would be like exemplified if I raised someone based on my ideals, you know, and then died on them. So yeah, Kiri Minagi is like which and her dad literally is killed by the Illuminati, basically, like literally killed for being like a positive influence on society. So yeah, I when I like reread the prequel book, Boogie Pop at Dawn, I got like really afraid. Like, oh no, I hope this isn't my future. Obviously that's how Kohei Kodono felt as well. I relate to that that author way too hard. And yeah, I mean, Tsuneko from Shiki basically is the mom in a sense, but I think that's the problem, is that the person who she has as a mother figure in her life is actually a daughter that she is raising poorly. And that's because she does not have a strong mother figure to teach her how to raise that daughter. And that's why her daughter gets fucking killed, and it's the saddest scene of all goddamn time. But, I could take care of Tsuneko. She's a sweetie at heart. She just, thinks she has to eat people, and I think she could live in symbiosis with people. So yeah, all these are just fucking good kids. All right, here's the characters that I feel so similarly to that they barely register as characters. And the reason that this category is at the bottom is that this is the hardest to explain. The hardest thing for me to explain has always been characters I actually relate to. There's only a few that I've ever really been willing to publicly sort of identify with, because they actually look like me and act like me in a more literal sense. So Madarame from Genshiken, he is a over-the-top otaku, loud, boisterous, always on about his opinions, but a good friend, nervous, socially awkward, ultimately takes an interest in trans girls. Though he ends up with a yellow-haired lolly. So, Madarame, definitely highly relatable and resembles me in a more literal sense. Same with Sato, particularly for when I was in high school and I was just in my room losing my mind. Or Shinji is literally what I felt like when I was 14. So when I watched that show, I felt no disconnect. Itoshiki is sort of what I embody when I'm doing Artso Fartso and just going crazy about my impressions of the world. Stoner I talked about earlier, but those are characters where I could post them on Twitter and say this is me in 3 characters, and nobody's going to question it, because that is exactly the person that I have been projecting, and there's no explanation needed. Even Araragi over here, I don't think people would question that much, given the nature of Monogatari, because if you follow me on the internet, all you ever hear is me talking. So, if you have these characters, Ocarina as well from Steins Gate is another one, easy to pin on me, right? Over-the-top character, loud, boisterous. But, all of these characters have a quiet side, where Sato is, loud and insane in his mind, but he's afraid in public. He can't even go outside. He's so, he's so afraid of being seen that he will not leave his house for 4 years. Madarame is just incredibly socially awkward in any situation that is not talking about anime, where he feels comfortable. Ocarina is literally putting on a character to try and, mask his, the paranoia and fear that he is constantly under, so that his friend feels better. Araragi spends more time thinking than speaking in the span of the series. So, what does the quiet side look like? What does that internal voice that is not the part that speaks out loud and tries to translate those feelings into words? What are the feelings that are attempting to be translated through means that resemble the means that these guys try to translate their feelings through? And that is represented by all the other characters that are on this bored. So Ito Nobue from Ichigo Marshmallow, she is she has difficulty with being sincere about the way that she feels about her little sister and her friends, because she wants to take care of them. She's kind of like overwhelmed by how like adorable they are, and like I think that she kind of thinks that maybe she missed out on her own opportunity to like be a cute kid, because she started smoking when she was like 10 or 12. She like, you know, she in the manga she's only 16. In the anime I think she's supposed to be 20, but like, or at least 18. But you know, she smokes and drinks and like rides a motorcycle and just tries to be like this badass, like kind of, you know, hard ass girl, because that's what she thinks is cool. But like what she actually, you know, wants to take care of is like all these cute little girls that are around her. And like she frames it as like as though it were like, you know, like she wanted to, you know, like she's sexualizing them. Like she makes it out like she is sexualizing them. But like it's just a way to sort of tease them and like objectify them, I guess, when in reality she is looking out for them. Like she is trying to take care of these kids who she likes, you know, with the exception of Miyu, who is a cunt and needs to be put in her place. But even her, she, you know, low-key likes her. She just wish she wouldn't be such a fucking idiot. So yeah, I see Nobue as like somebody who's basically projecting her inner desire to be cutesy onto these kids. And like when she is seen in cute outfits, like even though she went to work at like a restaurant with cute frilly outfits, like she's super embarrassed to be seen that way, you know? So yeah, it's just like her insecurity is projected onto these little girls, and obviously I relate to that. But like, you know, Nobue is, you know, maybe the way that I felt at a time. She's like kind of an even combination of character I feel like and character I want to be with, because in a sense, if she really was the surly image that she projects, or if that really is her comfort zone, and she just wanted to have like someone to like to see as cutesy, you know, and saw me as cutesy, then I would want her more as a partner. But if she really is like me and deep down just wants to be cutesy and all this other stuff is just out of, you know, the image of like coolness that she thinks is like most possible for her to project, then secretly she's the same as me. And, you know, if she took her true form, she would no longer be somebody that I thought was like cool and wanted to fuck, you know, she'd just be me. We've got Daidoji Tomoyo from Cardcaptor Sakura. She just follows a cute girl around and obsesses over her and tries to do anything she can to help, as she watches her fight to protect the emotions of the people around. She's an assistant to a magical girl, and I guess that's what I want to be, is the magical girl's assistant. You know, much like Anthe over there, who is basically a new type who is capable of manipulating the situation that she's in better than anybody, but has the least hope that doing so will lead to anything meaningful. And she attempts to maintain hope that Utena could actually bring about a meaningful change, but she cannot find that hope within herself without Utena just like proving it, and Utena does prove it, and therefore she is able to be hopeful. But you know, in the movie it goes even better. Shiki is somebody who is just like so, like, because of the weird, like, because of the fact that she sees so much more than most people, like, she sees the death in everything. So, like, she's basically the ultimate cynic. Like, she cannot have any kind of real, like, attachment to things or hope in things, because she only sees things in terms of death and in terms of her compulsion to make things die. And so, like, the constant need to repress those impulses drives her to just completely splinter her personality. And so she has to just spend like so much time just like recollecting the memories and figuring out like what the fuck is going on inside her own mind that she doesn't have much time to like engage with and figure out how she can be useful in other capacities. So this is another one that like reminds me more of myself when I was younger. Like when I was her age, I felt more like her. And, you know, over time, through sort of, you know, recognizing that, you know, I could see more than the death in things, or see the application of being someone who could see that, you know, find a way to have a meaningful life. We've got a couple of characters here, these two pink-haired tiny lolly girls, who in some way represent like things that I think I would have become had I actually looked the way that I like if let's say that I had somehow immortalized my child self before I ever went through puberty, and instead of becoming a man and growing a foot, I like remained the same height, and just like grew slightly more feminine and dyed my hair pink. Like what I would have personality wise resembled would have been like Sakurano Kurimu from what's the name of the show? The Student Council is Always Right, or something like that. Seitokai no Ichizon, that's the one. She is like, the funny thing about it is that like when I was a kid, I was insecure about a lot of the things that I would later be insecure about not being, you know? And so, like, Sakurano is, like, insecure about the fact that she is short and everybody perceives her as a child because she acts like a child. Like, she's just so, like, even though she is, like, you know, a straight-A student and, like, really hardworking and really, like, trying to be the best that she can be, she's just so, like, naive at the core that she just can't help but act like someone who is younger than she actually is. And because she also looks younger than she is, she's just perceived as younger than she is. And like, you know, long after I stopped being short and looking young, because I was not just the shortest but also the youngest kid in every class I was in, because I have an August 8th birthday. So like, and you know, in America at least, the school year, if you're born before September 31st, then you know, that like that's when the age cutoff is. So basically the youngest you could be, like my brother Shade, is September 29th birthday. So yeah, I was always the youngest and smallest, and I heavily identified with that, even though like, you know, Sakurano doesn't like that people perceive her that way. And maybe I wouldn't have eventually, but I kind of have like, you know, I kind of see her as like, oh, it's funny that you are upset with yourself for these tendencies, because these are the tendencies that like, you know, that people do not recognize in me because I do not look like you, and therefore I don't have to be insecure about them, I guess. And then Komoe Sensei here, she's like in her 40s, I think. She drinks and smokes and pines over having someone who can help her out, but she's just a good teacher who helps her fucking students and looks adorable, and I can't ask for much more than that, other than that she's lonely and I don't want to be lonely. Eureka from Eureka 7, she is taking care of 3 kids, even though she really has no fucking idea what she's doing. She's tasking herself anyways because she feels responsible for them, so she's gonna fucking take care of them. You know, I have a difficult time not feeling responsible for people, even though I shouldn't, even though like it's none of my business. You know, if I feel like I can, or if I feel like I'm the only one who can especially help somebody out, then it's very difficult for me not to, even if I don't really know what I'm doing, and B, you know, I don't really have the resources or time. Araragi has the same problem, as is Deconstructed in Monogatari extensively. I already kind of mentioned this character from Hodo Musco on the list of characters I didn't want to be like, but I also, I mean, I love her. I absolutely love her. I connect to the way that she is with her friends, and I feel like she has honestly a more mature outlook than I did at her age. I think that the sort of revelations her character goes through in middle school are like comparable to what I was going through in like late high school. So, which is also when I watched the show. So I connected with her mega fucking hard at the time. This character from New Game, she is the president of the company. She is the creative director. She's pretty good at communicating with her staff, but she is also lazy and runs off course and gets distracted and has to be herded by a hot girl with a gun. And, I mean, I don't mind getting shot with a few BBs if it's by Ahagon up there in my Girls I Want to Fuck tier. Here we have Haku from Naruto. Probably the first character that I ever saw that, like, visually, like, connected with me really, really personally, because, when I got into anime, it was through Adult Swim and through the movie Ninja Scroll, and I never had really connected with the characters in a very personal way. I was more interested in anime in like a metatextual sense and in like what was happening in the episodes. Inuyasha was the first character that I had connected with a little bit more strongly as like a role model, because he's like a cool long-haired guy with, a big sword. But Haku was like closer in personality to me and appearance as like a 12-year-old boy, which I was at the time, who looks like a girl, who is quiet and, reserved, but also like kind of a badass and, like protective of the person that they care about. And like Haku gets fucking like killed immediately, so there's not much more to the character, but I connected really strong with Haku, and, I mean, if anything, I feel like maybe if that character hadn't gotten killed, I could have learned something from them, but, I did not pick up on much of a lesson from watching him get splattered. But, Haku pretty much, looks like how I looked at the time. Konata from Lucky Star, I mean, she's just a fucking otaku. Like, what more could I say? My personality is just like hers as an otaku. She's similar to Madarame, but maybe not quite so autistic. But still plenty autistic, Again, I put in Tsuneko from Shiki. I feel like she is not so much like me in the sense that I've ever been as like nihilistic as she is in like the way I actually act or present myself, but certainly like, in like the darker state of mind, I feel like she's somebody who I connect with a whole lot. And when I watched Shiki, it was hard for me not to just be on her side. Because I felt like, I had similar emotions towards the world to what she did. But she's definitely not a good guy. Not entirely. Neither is Katja from fucking, Seikon no Quasar. She is a psychotic, sadomasochist who just basically tortures this lesbian girl and makes her do shit for her. She really needs to be put in her place, but nobody is going to put her in her place because she is a absolutely perfect doll-esque blonde lolly, but she is completely fucking in charge. She's like, my unchecked ego feels like her. When I think of myself as like an unstoppable badass, she is the energy I am projecting. Like, like the character of Digibro, if it looked like what it was supposed to be, it would look like her, I guess. Whereas Victorique is closer to like my natural state of being like kind of low key and distant and analytical and just kind of like, but also like, you know, if you want to reach me emotionally, you're gonna have to try really hard because I spent a lot of time locked in a cell and I'm gonna throw things at you when you try to come near me. So I'm a tsundere is basically what I'm trying to say, in the same way that Victorique is. You know, I put most of the tsunderes on my characters I wanted to mentor lists, like Luis or Shauna, because like I've never been as self-assuredly abrasive as a lot of those characters. Like a lot of those, like I have the same problem as a tsundere has of thinking like nobody is appreciating what is good about me, and it, like I'm always getting dunked on and I'm just fucking pissed off, and like I just want somebody to appreciate me without being like turning around at 5 seconds later doing something retarded, you know, which is what the guys always do who are with those characters. And like I guess, you know, just not having put myself out there the way that they do, I haven't had to deal with those kinds of things at the age that they did or in the circumstances that they did, but I understand how to help them. In the case of Victorique, though, her experience is much closer to mine, of being somebody who's like closed off in a walled garden and like a tsundere only because she is now finally having emotional interactions and having to navigate them, and like doesn't want to be a tsundere and is actively trying to stop but doesn't know how. And like I think most of them reach that stage at some point in the story, but Victorique has like a higher level of self-awareness than the average tsundere through, you know, being analytically minded. We've got again the girl from the Skycrawlers, who I think, you know, is closer to how I used to feel, and now is somebody I feel like I could mentor to some degree. There's a handful of just like lazy like characters who are intelligent but lazy. And like in the case of the girl from Nekogami Yaoyorozu, she's another case of like, because she feels like people don't recognize what's good about her, she will not put effort into therefore being good. You know, that's like one of my worst traits. Lanessia here, she's just lazy. She just does not want to have to commit to anything. She has to be strong-armed into things. But you know, ultimately is trying to be as helpful as she can. I also just think she's fucking absolutely beautiful. Definitely aesthetic goals. Like this is like the look I actually want to have. I think like this is, I'm gonna dye my hair this color and braid it like this and fucking I don't know. If I don't go for the P2 look first. Well, I guess we could talk about P2 because this was the one I was getting the most questions about on Twitter. But like, hopefully it makes more sense to you now, because essentially her whole character is about developing this like intense maternal instinct and just like going apeshit feral to you know, to protect like what she perceives as, you know, her offspring, I guess. And unfortunately she gets vaporized, but ultimately, you know, it's because of the fact that she did not have like, you know, the social awareness to understand that it's not okay to just like rip everybody to fucking shreds who opposes you in any way. So I guess she like represents what I see as like the most raw, feral, maternal instinct that you kind of have to curb through logic. Like, you cannot be this way. This is like, this would be me if I was like fucking, you know, didn't have empathy for anybody except for my own offspring, you know. This is like the ideal form, I guess. Shinji, I already talked about. I related to when I was a kid. We've got the kid from Gatchaman Crowds who is gender non-binary and performs like distinct male and female characters, builds an app that is just basically to try to give people a way to help each other, and like earn like game credits basically through performing social good. So yeah, massive SJW, but in a good way. We've got the gray-haired girl from fucking Princess Principal. You know, in a way, she's more like my more masculine side that is like out to just like protect the princess, but also because the princess feel like, you know, protects her. So it's like they have a kind of a symbiotic, like they're both girls, they're both relying on each other for both emotional and like, you know, protectionary, like physical purposes. One's more frontline warrior, one's more backroom dealer. So I guess maybe I could have, you know, reversed the roles, and it might have been like, I mean, part of the gimmick in this show is that the two of them like have to switch places and like pretend to fill each other's roles. I don't remember exactly how it plays out, but one of them's relatable. That makes sense enough. Here we've got fucking Kumiko from Hibike Euphonium. This is another character who I think has kind of a similar attitude towards the interactions she takes with people, this like exhaustion towards having to deal with people's emotional bullshit, but also like wanting to be there for people and like trying to figure out how to navigate that space. And like ultimately, you know, seeing Reina as like such a like no bullshit, passionate, like awesome person that she's like, I just want to like help that person achieve their goals, you know. And then we have Natsume here, who just tasks himself with way too much, even worse than Araragi because he's getting less out of it, but feeling like he has this responsibility to make up for the mistakes of the past generations who, you know, just weren't really thinking in the way that they hurt people, and he wants to, you know, make it right. Boogie Pop here is a pretty fucking big one for me, because I mean, I read this book when I was 14, connected to it mega hard, continued to connect with it and get new, you know, understandings over the years. But when I first came out to myself, it started with me identifying a feminine identity as being phantasmal, like bubbles, as Boogie Pop describes himself. He bubbles to the surface, a personality that is inside Miyashita Toka, who is a girl, but is she really different from Boogie Pop? Are they really separate identities? How aware are they of one another? Who is the real one? Who was there first? Who is the result of repression? And who is the, you know, the result of her actual character? These are all questions that are up in the air, at least in the early books. I haven't read any, you know, past that. But yeah, Boogie Pop is, you know, a sort of confused, you know, about their gender and who they are really, but like ultimately just kind of allowing it to happen, I guess, because Boogie Pop only bubbles to the surface when he's necessary. So like I had kind of looked at Gray as my Boogie Pop until I realized that, you know, in the same sense that like maybe Boogie Pop is the real Miyashita Toka, and she is just the mask that is worn to fit into society. Gray is the real me, and you know, the version of me that is visible to everybody else is the facade. And that's how I connect with Boogie Pop. We also have Suema Kazuko here, who is more the like person who basically had faith in the system and was good at following the system until the day when she lost faith in the system because she saw the abyss. And now she is obsessed with chasing the abyss. She is obsessed with understanding why she was chosen, why she's the one who had to, you know, be taken away from normalcy. And ultimately, she becomes the queen of the abnormal, the ultimate leader of the freaks, I guess, later in the series. I haven't really read this part where this happens, but as I understand it, she like takes over the major fucking, like she basically becomes the leader of the Illuminati. I don't know if she becomes evil or good, but you know, I like it. I like the arc. We got this girl from Gatekeepers 21. I can never remember any of what actually happens in Gatekeepers 21. It's a 6-episode OVA. All I can ever remember is that the girl acts exactly like me and probably looks more like how I actually look than a lot of these girl characters, especially considering she wears like frumpy flowing clothes and like I used to wear glasses when I was younger. I don't anymore. Maybe one day I'll get back to wearing big frame glasses. Sabrina from Pokemon, massively autistic psychic, puts her parents into a fucking dollhouse and like torments people and has a really severe expression. And I used to watch the Sabrina arc tape over and over when I was a kid. It was like one of my favorite Pokemon tapes. And I don't think I ever really, like, as a kid, identified with Sabrina, because even though I loved the episode and I loved the portrayal of her character, she's so abstract. Like, there's no point where the show stops and just, like, Sabrina talks to you about how she's feeling. Like, other people analyze and break it down and, like, try to give structure to it. But, like, the way that Sabrina herself acts is consistent. And, like, the character of Soraya in Kusomega is heavily based on Sabrina's portrayal in the anime of Pokemon because of the way that I connected with Sabrina's portrayal in the anime of Pokemon. As, like this is the kind of person I feel like I was when I was a kid. Somebody who just is, like, you know, like, I mean, she's, in the context of the anime, she's like 16. I was like 8 when I connected with this. But like the idea that she's like stunted emotionally in a state where she was when she was 8 because of the fact that that's when like her parents left or divorced or whatever, and like that's the trauma that fueled her to like remain in Arrested Development. It's like that didn't happen to me, but like if it had and I had not changed from 8 to 16, Sabrina is, I think, the kind of person I would have ended up being. And you know, Soraya is like a reinterpretation of that character where they did not become like evil and ruthless, but instead just kind of confounding, I guess. Anyway, Watashi from fucking Jinrui wa Suitai Shimashita. Again, she is a diplomat. She is somebody who is out there to, you know, try to make peace and to communicate, but she is extremely cynical, extremely lazy, and basically only does as much as she has to, as much delegation as humanly fucking possible, and treats everything like it is an absolute chore. Highly relatable. Then we have Nozomu from Kanokon. This is another character where I see it as like, if I was actually like, if I was like if I had her body and powers, I would just act like her. You know, she's got a boy that she wants his dick, and she will go to any lengths to get there, even if she has to share him with the other bitch. I wish that she would just get with the girl, though. Like, they don't need the guy in there. The two of them would be perfect for each other. You know, they don't need to project their need to be with a guy onto him. They can just be with each other, and it'll be perfect. I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. Harime Nui. You know, I talked about how Onsokumaru is like my, like, the extreme worst, like, new type obnoxious, like, asshole. Harime Nui is almost just as bad, but because of the fact that she has to be somewhat grounded in reality, I feel like she is exactly like what I am like. It's hard for me, again, to express like the way that I act in social situations where I feel comfortable, because, like, you know, when I was growing up, I would just act true to myself even if I would get shit for it, whereas as an adult, I will only act true to myself in situations where I guess I just act appropriately for the situation, you know? And I'm not often in situations where I feel like I need to act like Harime Nui. Maybe I just don't feel the need to act that way at all anymore. Maybe I just am not like this character. But at my worst or in my past, I certainly have been as obnoxious as Harime Nui. And I love her. We also have Destiny Fucker in here. Destiny Fucker is just a one-to-one parallel of me. There's no difference. There's no meaningful divide between me and Destiny Fucker. Then we have this girl from Asate no Hoko, and honestly, it's been so long since I watched the show, and I did it in one sitting, and I don't really remember any of the plot. I just remember connecting to this character because she is a grown woman who accidentally, like, there's a little girl and a grown woman who both switch places. They don't, like, literally change bodies. They just become, one becomes a little girl, the other becomes an adult. And they kind of have to explore their insecurities through that. And I just remember this girl connecting with her. And also, she's fucking adorable. And also, I want to be the little girl. And we have Sora from No Game, No Life. His passionate desire to continue believing in humanity and continue inspiring them in spite of the fact that he, understands how bad they are more than anyone, but because of the fact that he has been put into a context where, like, he knows there is a victory state for humanity, there is nothing stopping him from absolute belief in the ability to reach that victory state. And that's how I feel, because there's a victory state I believe in, which is to go beyond causality. And, as long as I believe that that's possible, nothing can stop me from trying. And finally, the last character, the biggest one that I have on here, taking up the most space, is Oshino Shinobu from Monogatari. I really look at Shinobu as sort of being the, like sort of representing Araragi's, like, repressed ego. Like, who Araragi really wishes he could be is, like, somebody who is so, like, unstoppably fucking powerful that he could literally resolve anything. Like, Shinobu she has endless knowledge, endless power, endless ability to just enact her will on the world and make things the way that she wants it to be. However, through Araragi, who is extremely restrained and patient and willing to work with people to try to help people, and doesn't really have goals of his own, other than, to help these people in the moment. So it's like he can tap into her power to some extent, and she can make demands of him to some extent, but, like, the trust that they have in one another is essentially what keeps them in a position where they can, like, help others. And, like, the whole arc that Araragi goes through in identifying Shinobu in the, like, last few episodes of the first season of Bakemonogatari, is essentially about him recognizing that he is neglecting himself, his own, like, inner emotional state, in order to help other people, and that, like, what he needs to do is to call on someone. Like, he needs to call on the person who is there, who is waiting, who literally will not help until he calls on her. And the second he does, she defeats the enemy. It's like his fear of exerting the latent potential within himself is what causes him to be afraid to call on Shinobu. But, like, once he trusts her to represent his intentions, and she trusts him implicitly, but again, just won't do anything if she's not called on. So it's like, it's like she is the propeller of Araragi's confidence. It's like the fact that he has this trump card, he has this all powerful, vampire lolly living in his shadow. He has the confidence to now engage whatever he has to, and if at the absolute worst, he has this to fall back on as a companion. And, like, the way that the conversations between Araragi and Shinobu are framed throughout the series feel like a conversation with himself. Like, they're always working together. They're working in tandem. There's no sexual tension, even in, like, the first scene where we really hear from Shinobu, episode 4, season 2, is the big bath scene, or is it episode 2, season 2? I don't remember. The big bath scene in that scene, they don't really act as though like it's a sexual scene at all. Even though they're like naked and they're all over each other, they just seem extremely comfortable. It's just a very, a very truthful interaction where they're just nakedly speaking to each other, and just seeming like completely at home with each other. And like, aside from that iconography resonating with me, because I am a big time like bath person, and I also like, I really appreciate that as like an intimate setting because of the fact that, it's two people being naked together, but in a non-sexual context. I see it as like representative of this idea that they have the absolute trust that one has in their own like self. And like, I think that, if Nisio is seen meant to, like, I mean, any author is ultimately going to reflect themselves in all the characters they create to some extent. And Nisio is seen as somebody who you can very easily see, like, why each of these characters is connected and like what the common threads are and like what kind of person would create these characters. But I think that if Araragi is, the forward facing projection of Nisio Isin, and Senjo Gahara is an effective metaphor for understanding his, more complex thinking, and that, and the empathy, and like, Araragi is the way that he actually views the world, but he has empathy for Senjo Gahara because he connects to the less lexical thinking, even though he is more analytical himself. But like, the character who actually thinks like him, who actually is the, the sum total of knowledge and also of, while still having his emotional understanding, I guess, is Shinobu. If this makes sense. Hopefully everything I'm saying makes sense and doesn't sound like fucking absolute insanity. But there you go. Those are the characters that I contextualize myself through in anime, based on all the anime that I've seen enough of to know the characters. I'm sure there's more characters I could have put on here, but this took a fucking eternity. And hopefully this was interesting in some way. Hopefully this will inspire you to try to contextualize yourself and your taste through anime. This definitely, even more so than understanding myself and my relationship to characters, it really just was like the biggest revelation from this was realizing the connective tissue of my favorite shows. Because my whole entire career, I've been trying to figure out what is the connective tissue of all the anime that I like the most. And I really do think of it as like motherly spirit. Like, K-On! Is a show that the creators themselves said that, like, they approached it with, like, we are these characters' mothers. And, like, when I see the character, I know they're going to go out in the cold, I want to dress them up in something warm so that they'll feel protected. And it's, like, that sheer attention to detail of, like, trying to guide your characters through an experience where you're simultaneously allowing them to experience things for themselves while also trying to guide them towards, like, where you want them to get in a gentle way. I guess that's what I connect to in the experience of these shows. The care that the author has for their characters and the desire to bring them to the place that they need to be without encroaching on their ability to, like, be themselves, and to for the narrative to play out the way it has to for these characters, So, yeah, all right, that's it. Thanks for watching this. I'm going to try to get out an Otoganzo tape very soon, as well as, going to keep doing Befriending the Internet, where I talk about everything going on in the channel. That's a great hub if you want to reach me. Watch that show, leave a comment. I respond to the comments on episodes of the show. I'm also launching a show called Scraps, where I'm just going to collect all the random thoughts and ideas and half-finished scripts that I come out with all the time and put those all into one video. And long-form anime analysis and that kind of stuff will come when I am ready, because those projects take a long time, and there is not one that is currently in, like, a deep state of production. So, hopefully this video was enjoyable as an anime analysis in its own right. And, I guess look in the description for any more information. Thanks for watching. Bye!